Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's wife shows her true colors and their marriage turns into a nightmare. My wife told me a little white lie, and I don't know how to react, plus updates. My wife and I have been married for 7 years and together for 10. We're both avid motorcyclists, and riding used to be one of the things that brought us closer. It still does, but mostly for her. She prefers going out late at night on the weekends, and for a while, she got in the habit of not checking in with me at all. I don't think it's unreasonable for a husband to worry when his wife is out on a motorcycle at midnight. I don't need a location pin dropped every 10 minutes, but I figured a simple, "Hey, here's where I am," wasn't a big ask. We fought about this a lot. She said I was smothering her, that I needed to stop breathing down her neck. It was confusing because all I ever asked for was a quick update so I'd know that she was safe. We eventually went to therapy about it. Even our therapist raised an eyebrow about the late-night rides with no check-ins. Still, my wife could never seem to understand why it mattered. Fast forward to a few weekends ago. She was out riding again, and it was getting dark. I sent her a message asking if she was grabbing dinner while she was out. She replied with a simple, "Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, love you," with a heart emoji. I was kind of hoping she'd give me a little more detail as it was getting dark out. A little while later, I texted again. "Sweet, I'm gonna be home for the night. What are you up to?" No reply, so I followed up with, "I really dislike when you don't care to tell me what you're doing out on a Friday night." Maybe that sounded blunt of me, but this was a recurring fight, and she knows how much the silence triggers my anxiety. This started a text argument. She eventually said, "Talk to you later," and then told me that she was going to keep riding. Naturally, I kept texting because I was worried. Then she sent me, "I'm trying to drive my damn bike, and you're blowing up my phone with this. I don't breathe down your neck. I respect and trust you. Please do the same. It's exhausting." Something about that didn't sit right. I had a hunch that she wasn't riding at all. What I did next might not have been my best moment, but my gut wouldn't shut up. I drove over to her favorite late-night eatery and I walked inside. There she was, sitting at the bar. Her bike was parked outside. I placed my hand on the exhaust. It was completely cold. She had just told me that she had slammed on the brakes to text me. The timeline didn't make sense. I felt betrayed. Even if she wasn't doing anything wrong, she still lied. I left shortly after, went home, and sent her a message saying I knew where she was. That led to a huge argument later, but we eventually made amends. She promised she would check in more clearly going forward. I tried to believe it. That wasn't the white lie though, but simply a precursor. Now we get to the real issue I'm dealing with. A week later, she went to a local cafe bar to do some work. She was being really good about checking in that evening, but as the night went on, the updates slowed down again. She told me she was going to her office to finish something. That was the last I heard. I left the gym late that night and called her to check in. No answer. She called back a few minutes later. While we were talking, I could hear other people in the background. Something about her voice sounded off. She was also talking kind of weird, almost like she was trying to keep her words short. After a minute, she said she had to pick up another call immediately. She said it was important because the seller's agent for the house we were trying to buy was calling with news. This was something that affected both of us, so I understood. I expected a call back soon, but she never called. After an hour, I called her again. No answer. She texted, "Call you in a few." When she called back, she was in her car and she started explaining what she learned from the agent. She talked about how long the conversation was, how she called our lender after, how she went over the numbers. It just didn't add up. I asked, "Where were you when I called?" She said, "I'm driving now. I pulled over earlier to talk to the seller's agent." I said, "If you pulled over, why could I hear people in the background when I first called?" She didn't have an answer, and it felt so off. I let it go at the moment, but it stayed with me. Later that night, I told her I just wanted her to feel like she could finally be honest with me. She didn't come clean. Today, I finally checked the phone records. I wasn't trying to control her or violate her privacy. I just couldn't shake the feeling. Not at all to my surprise, there was nothing. No call from the agent, no conversation with the lender, nothing that matched the story she told me. She faked the interruption so she could get off the phone with me. When I confronted her, she admitted to lying, but only in the most bare minimum way. I'm sorry I lied to you. Then she followed it up with the real message that this is my fault. I'm insecure. I need to trust her more. I smother her. She lies because she's overwhelmed by my expectations. She claimed it was easier to lie than to tell me she wanted to stay out with friends. It felt like she was justifying the lie, turning it into something reasonable. Somehow, I became the cause. We didn't get anywhere. I feel betrayed again. I don't know how to trust her going forward, and I feel awful that she couldn't just tell the truth without blaming me for it. I don't know what to do. We haven't really spoken since. Thank you to anyone who read this. Edit. A few weeks have passed since I wrote this, and I wanted to offer an update for those who requested one. To cut to the chase, we're getting divorced. Honestly, experiencing this has been excruciating to say the least. I wish this on no one. When I was fielding your much-needed replies, I was staying at an Airbnb to give us time away from one another. She was livid at first, but she quickly realized the importance of the time away. I had plenty of time to reflect on many of the responses here and spent all my free time journaling to work out my thoughts. I returned home after a week and we had our heart-to-heart. Much to my surprise, we both came forward equally with the proposition to separate. Now, I don't believe she was cheating, and I don't think it's a substance dependency. These were suggestions that seemed to percolate to the top of the thread. Perhaps I am naive as well, but at this point, it no longer matters. Regardless, what we have is a textbook case of two people who aren't right for one another. We have fought hard to save our marriage over the years, and quite honestly, the feeling of failure is the hardest part to cope with. Beautiful memories of our early time together surface in waves and show up as tears. She and I have grieved this loss at different times and in different ways. There will always be the doubt and questioning of, could we have made it work? Hopefully, the years will reduce that doubt to a whisper. In conclusion, we're both amicable at this phase and hope to continue a friendship in the future. That is, a friendship not carried over from a previous marriage, but one rebuilt from scratch. In some ways, I can sense our relationship already healing and improving. I hope this may be a predictor of the future. I'm about to close on my own home soon. There's a subtle undertone of fear in the loneliness ahead, but I can see that quickly becoming eclipsed by the opportunity to rebuild myself. I look forward to the journey and growing and learning to love who I am as an individual. I wish her the best as well. Thank you to everyone whose insight helped me work through such a difficult time. You're right to feel betrayed. She's lying a lot more than she admits, and she hasn't shown any real remorse. That alone makes trust almost impossible to rebuild. There's also a real chance she's having an affair. The late nights, secrecy, and defensiveness all point in that direction. Even if she isn't, her behavior still isn't compatible with a healthy marriage. And instead of owning any of it, she turns it around and blames your so-called insecurities. That would be it for me. You don't have kids, so if you leave, you can start over without dragging this along. Update 2 months later. To give a little context, I've always been the steady income in our marriage. Her work is seasonal and unpredictable. As much as I wanted to leave right away, I couldn't bring myself to abandon her financially while she still tried to get back on her feet. When we first talked about separation, she suggested something that instantly felt wrong. She wanted us to live under the same roof until next May. According to her, that would give her time to save during her busy months. There was no way I could agree to that. Staying in the same house would have destroyed whatever was left of our connection. I also knew I needed real space if I was ever going to heal and rebuild after everything that had happened. So I decided to buy my own house. Even then, I offered to continue helping her financially until she could manage on her own. For a short while, things were civil. After I closed on my new place, we even had moments where we acted almost friendly. My new house was completely empty. I had a wooden bar stool, a worn rug, and that was it. When I finally bought a couch, I genuinely celebrated. You don't realize how much comfort means until you've been living on hard seats and silence for days. For about a week, she and I exchanged small gestures of goodwill. Then she went quiet. I guess that was to be expected. Honestly, the silence was peaceful. Waking up and not needing to brace for a fight was something I hadn't felt in years. I started noticing that I actually liked this new quiet part of my life. Not having to talk with her brought me a sense of relief. One thing I had to deal with was a small water heater leak at her house, my old house, which I still own. I noticed it right before I moved out. I had hired a plumber to fix it, but the company canceled on me twice. I have a busy work schedule, and I didn't feel like stepping foot in that house, but I finally reached a point where I couldn't wait anymore. I told her I'd be dropping by, and she said it was fine. I'm decent with plumbing and figured it wouldn't take long. When I got there, I drained the lines, cut the damaged pipe, and fixed the leak. Easy work. Afterward, I needed a place to toss the pieces of pipe and tape. Her trash can was in the garage, so I lifted the lid, and that's when I saw it. A crushed box with a tied-off used protection hanging out of it. I didn't dig around or look any further. I didn't need to. The sight alone told me everything. I'd been out of that house for barely a week. We were still legally married. I'm still helping her financially and trying to keep things steady so she wouldn't feel abandoned. And here I was, fixing her water heater while she was already entertaining someone new. My chest felt tight. At that point, I knew in my gut that I no longer wanted to be a part of this. I needed to be free of this misery. I put the trash lid down, finished the job, took a picture of the water heater, and sent her a simple message. Good as new. If you wouldn't mind, just keep an eye on it for a day or two. She sent back a thank you and a heart emoji. I told her to call me the next day so we could talk. My heart kept racing the whole night. I wasn't ready to have that conversation. I needed food, rest, and time. Eventually, my phone rang. I knew she hated call me messages because she has anxiety around them, but I needed a night to collect myself. When I answered, I kept it simple at first. I told her the water heater was fixed and that she might want to have a professional take a look within the year. Then I told her the conversation was about to get difficult. I didn't tell her outright what I saw. I didn't describe the box. I didn't ask for details or explanations. I didn't see the point in tying myself to that pain or giving her room to twist it. I just said, I know you've moved on, and I know how you chose to do it. Then I told her I was removing myself from all shared accounts and that she would need to manage her own finances from here on out. She immediately blew up. That word you all taught me from last time, Darvo, came to mind. She denied, attacked, reversed victim and offender. There was gaslighting, insults, accusations. She tried to paint me as the one breaking our agreement. She went on about how she thought I took pride in being a person of honor and respect. She even claimed we had agreed that we could both meet our needs with other people. Maybe she convinced herself that was true. Maybe it was easier for her to rewrite the past than to face it. So why am I writing this? 3 reasons. For one, this is the end of my story. What happened today is the lowest point I've hit in all of this. And I know from here on out, it's only forward. Second, many Redditors believed she had been cheating during the marriage. I didn't want to believe that. After seeing how quickly she moved on, maybe you weren't wrong. Third, I just needed a place to vent. I also had to put my cat down today due to cancer. It was a heavy blow on top of everything else. Despite all of this, I'm so glad to leave that toxic mess behind. I want so desperately to believe I'm making the right call to cut all ties. I'm choosing myself now. I'm choosing peace and a life where I don't have to question the truth every single day. Part of me wonders if she owed it to our 10 years together to wait a little while before jumping into something new, at least until we finalized finances. But maybe expecting decency from her at this point was unrealistic. Either way, this will be my last post here for a long time. Thank you to everyone who helped me navigate this. Your insight has been an anchor during one of the hardest times of my life. I'm moving forward, and that's what matters. Brother, I know it stings right now, but if she's this quick to physically move on from you, then you need to do yourself a favor and emotionally move on. She was already acting like the marriage was over while you were still fixing problems in a house that legally belongs to you. That's the part that shows exactly where her loyalty has been. You were handling repairs and offering financial support, and she was already entertaining someone new in your house. Protect yourself. Stop giving her stability she hasn't earned. Talk to a lawyer, separate your finances, and treat the house as your asset, not her safety net. She chose her path. Let her deal with the reality of it without you carrying her any further. You've done more than enough. The biggest takeaway here is this. You spent years getting stepped on and believing you were the problem. Every time you tried to bring something up, she flipped it on you. She made you question your instincts. She made you feel insecure, clingy, and unreasonable. And the moment the separation started, she didn't take a breath before having someone else in your house, using your space, tossing used protection into your trash like you were already erased from her life. You finally stood up for yourself, and she blew up because the manipulation stopped working. Stick with the lawyer, split things clean, and don't let her pull you back into this mess. You're not a backup plan, and you never should have been treated like one. This hurts now, but it's the start of you getting your life back. She didn't just bend the truth. She treated their marriage like it was optional. Exactly. OP was keeping the house running while she was out there creating new memories in his house. I'm glad he finally stepped away. Sometimes it's really drastic things like this that have to happen in order for us to cut our entanglement with people like her. Right. Someone may be horrible for you, but you've spent so long with them that you just sort of accepted this as your current reality. But once they're out of your life and they stop dragging you down, everything changes for the better. And what seemed like a curse at first ends up being the best thing that could have happened to you. Because you know the love that you're worthy of, and if they don't, it's not on you to convince them. My boyfriend's sister now wants me to dye my hair to be a guest at her wedding. So to start this off, my boyfriend and I have been together for about a year now. Things between us have been solid, and I've gotten to know his family pretty well. They're polite and traditional. We do things a certain way and always have. Meanwhile, I'm a bit more alternative, but they've always kept things civil, and I tried to do the same. Everything was fine until his sister got engaged last fall. I had met her a few times before, and she was friendly in that surface level way that some people are. She once told me she was looking forward to having me at her wedding. I thought that was sweet, and I didn't expect anything strange to come from it. But little did I know what that would entail. Her fiancé approached my boyfriend out of nowhere and asked him to be a groomsman. My boyfriend didn't give much of an answer. He has anxiety and gets overwhelmed by social events, so he told me later he really didn't want to stand up at the wedding. He wanted to attend as a guest, support his sister, and go home. That's it. He declined the offer politely, and his sister didn't take it well. In fact, she just ignored his answer and sent him the tux she said he was going to need. The tux was expensive, and she expected him to buy it outright. Not rent it, but own it for some reason. Hundreds of dollars plus tailoring for a role he had already said no to. He stood firm, so she dragged their parents into it. They tried to pressure him, and somehow I got blamed for his decision. Like he couldn't possibly think for himself, and my evil influence was steering him away from tuxedos. He corrected them, defended me, and said he wasn't changing his mind. Things cooled down for a while, or so I thought. A few weeks later, his sister informed him that she couldn't provide a dinner plate for me at the reception. This was months before the wedding. You can imagine my confusion. I'd already been invited. They were still planning everything. There was no reason I couldn't be added to the count, except that she simply didn't want me there. Technically, I was invited, but practically I wasn't. I tried to shrug it off and move forward until she messaged again. This time, she said there was a dress code for all guests, not just the wedding party. Everyone in attendance was expected to wear burnt orange or green. That would have been fine, but then she added something else. She told my boyfriend that I needed to dye my hair black. My hair is dyed dark red. Anyone who dyes their hair knows black is almost impossible to remove. It's one of those colors that sticks like you signed a contract with it. Going back to my usual shade would take more bleaching, more damage, and months of dealing with it. There was no chance I was doing that for anyone's wedding. My boyfriend backed me completely. He said it was my decision, and he supported me no matter what. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about how targeted it all felt. Not feeding me, then trying to force me into a tuxedo budget argument, then trying to control my appearance from head to toe. I told him I was probably not even going. I didn't see the point. I wasn't welcome as myself. And yet, part of me wondered what this would mean for his family in the long run. Would this be the start of a wedge? Would I be blamed again? Would this keep happening? I didn't expect any of it when I first met them. I only wanted to talk about it with people who might understand. Updates will be in the comments for now until I can better format them to be shorter and fit well into this post. Thank you all. Edit. There are a few things I didn't include earlier about his family, and they explain a lot of why this has spiraled the way it has. His sister has always expected him to do whatever she wants. When she asked him to be a groomsman, she didn't just ask. She sent him the exact tux she wanted him to buy and have tailored, even though he's been saving for his own place. Last Christmas, she also asked him for about $500 for the wedding, even though her fiancé's parents are already paying for most of it. He still got her gifts that fit her interests, and she acted disappointed. Meanwhile, she gave him the exact same shirt she bought him the last 2 years in a row. His parents usually back her up. His mom, she's one of those little submissive trade wife types, keeps quiet. But his dad went as far as threatening my boyfriend's living situation. He's at home temporarily and is house hunting actively when he said he didn't want to be in the wedding. He still said no. When I first met him, he basically did everything for them because he didn't know what healthy boundaries looked like. Over time, he learned to speak up, and they aren't used to that. They also tried to blame me for his decisions more than once. As for the dinner plate, she later claimed it was sorted out months ago, but never bothered to tell us. It felt intentional, like she wanted me to feel unwelcome. And about the hair dye, my hair is dyed red and already processed, so going black would damage it and be hard to reverse. I joked about wearing my old black cosplay wig, but that's about as far as I'm willing to go. Update 1 hour later. After thinking about everything, I ended up sending her a message to set some boundaries. This is what I told her. Hi, I just wanted to reach out because I heard from boyfriend about your request for me to dye my hair at your wedding. That's way too big of a commitment for me, especially as a guest. If I don't fit the aesthetic you want, then you can go ahead and uninvite me. I was planning to come as his date, but I'm not going to damage my hair or dye it a color I don't want to just for a wedding. I'm happy to wear green or burnt orange and follow a dress code, but asking guests to change their hair is unreasonable and honestly disrespectful. If that's an issue, then please feel free to take me off the guest list because I'm not doing it. Update 6 hours later. So instead of replying to me directly, she went and showed my message to her whole family. My boyfriend is furious that she turned it into drama and he's not speaking to her right now. His parents tried to jump in and get pushy with him, and he told them that if they ever want to come to our wedding someday, they can shave their eyebrows and dye their hair green so they know what it feels like to be told to change their appearance for no reason. His sister is still being petty, so who knows where things go from here. But I'm sticking to my boundaries. She also apparently fixed the no dinner plate for me situation a while ago and just never cared to tell us. So I technically do have a meal if I go. But honestly, I doubt I'll be there. Her dinner excuse is nonsense. Weddings take forever to plan. She could have added one plate, she just didn't want to. And she definitely didn't want to admit that. As for the hair dye situation, she's either trying to embarrass you or she hates how you look because you don't fit the picture in her head. But she doesn't get to design her guests like props in a photo shoot. Wear whatever color you want and keep your hair. Or better yet, skip the whole thing. This girl is showing you exactly who she is. Update. Over a year has passed since that whole mess with my boyfriend's sister, and I completely forgot I promised to update. People have been asking, so here it is. I did end up going to the wedding, against what everyone advised, and I'm so glad I did, because it was one of the biggest disasters I've ever witnessed. First, the rehearsal. It was outdoors in the heat. Everyone was exhausted. The planner was yelling. Someone stepped on a snake in the grass. People kept forgetting where to walk. The whole thing felt like watching a group project fall apart in real time. At the rehearsal dinner, I embarrassed everyone by giving my boyfriend Advil for a migraine and walking him to the bathroom. Apparently, that was offensive. His parents sent a message the next morning saying that my piercings weren't allowed either, which led to my boyfriend calling and confronting them again. Still, I decided to go. I had now seen how bad the rehearsal was, so I had to be there for this wedding. I put on a tight emerald dress, and of course, I kept my piercings and my hair red. When I got there, I noticed something immediately. I saw plenty of people with piercings, tattoos, and dyed hair. Not a single person was wearing green or burnt orange. The actual wedding colors were beige and pink. So yeah, everyone was right. Those rules that she gave me were definitely targeted. It really did feel like she made them up just to single me out or try to make me look out of place. Now on to the wedding. The ceremony itself was a disaster. One of the groom's friends acted as a flower man and threw petals in a guest's face. The music paused twice because the speakers sounded like they were waterlogged. The groom walked out to "X gon' give it to ya," while his buddies yelled and whistled like they were at a bar. Very classy. The bride's grandmother refused to walk the way that they rehearsed and argued loudly with the coordinator. Everyone was looking at each other, cracking jokes and whispering, and it might have been one of the least serious weddings I've ever attended. During photos, the bride asked me to join, only to purposely shove me to the back. My boyfriend picked me up, bridal style, so I'd be visible in every shot. The photographer gave us a look, but I didn't care. Food was 1 plate per person. I waited until the server changed shifts and got 2 plates anyway. The bride disappeared for hours taking pictures. People were bored, waiting for the cake. We danced, had fun, and later found footage of the reception on the photographer's page. In one clip, the bride was dancing on another guy. When I say on, I mean on, because our body was fully pressed up against this random guy. So yeah, that's how that went. I went, I saw, I looked good, and I got to laugh at a failure of a wedding. That wraps up that saga. As for the rest, my boyfriend and I are really great. We live together now. He's cut off a lot of contact with his family because of things unrelated to the wedding. His parents tried to force him into buying a house he didn't want, then locked him out of the family home, so he's been distancing himself anyway. His sister and I aren't close, and I'm fine with that. She's the type who tries to live a luxury lifestyle while drowning in debt. She also sent some very offensive messages about me to my boyfriend, which pushed him to stop talking to her for months. Somehow, she and her husband are still married, though my boyfriend and I suspect he may not be into women. My boyfriend once went to their apartment when she wasn't home, and 2 male voices suddenly hushed and ran before the husband answered the door. They've never seemed into each other. Everything about their relationship feels like a performance. Anyway, that's everything I got. Thank you all for your comments and your advice. That wedding sounds exactly like the kind of event where you're grateful you went because the story is hilarious, not because the wedding was good. Between the snake, the music, the flower dude, and the bride dancing on another man, it sounds like a reality show. I'm glad you and your boyfriend are doing well. His family sounds exhausting. Keep your boundaries strong. She tried to control the whole vibe, then her own wedding went off script. OP still walked in with her red hair, standing out in the best way, while the bride's plan fell flat. My girlfriend, who's 27, is demanding that I, 27 male, get a tattoo of her initials to prove my love to her. So last Christmas, I brought her home. She and my stepdad had a disagreement, and I asked her to apologize to him after my mom was insisting on it so we could just get it over with and move on. She apologized, but immediately regretted it and reverted back to her self-destructive behavior that she struggled with in the past. Fast forward to yesterday, and she's reminiscing about that incident and wants me to prove that I understand her, which means getting a tattoo of her initials on me. I'm not doing that, as I hate tattoos and she knows it. We're probably breaking up, but I figured it couldn't hurt to ask the internet for some creative ideas. Short of that, or getting her an engagement ring, what are other ways that I can prove to her my love? This whole thing is toxic, dude. Here's a creative idea. Run and never look back. So you're probably breaking up, but another option is getting engaged? Dude. Lots of unhealthy behaviors here to unpack. Never apologize if you aren't sorry. Never feel that you have to prove anything. And don't get engaged to shut someone up. Goodness gracious. Am I the jerk for the meltdown I had on Christmas Day, which caused my dad's wife to cry? The background starts with my mom passing. I, 17 female, was 11, and my sisters were 16 and 18. Our dad met his second wife a couple of years later, when I was 13. The expectations for my relationship with her and my sisters were very different. My sisters were expected to be civil, but if they weren't close, it was no big deal. But almost everyone, minus my sisters and minus my mom's family, expected me to see my dad's wife as some second mother or maternal and parental figure. They got married when I was 14. My dad's wife wanted me to divide Mother's Day between my sisters and maternal side with her. My sisters were not expected to do the same, but she would say she wanted to celebrate the day with her kid. She signed us up for mother-daughter things. She would get hurt when I didn't want to go and would never ask my sisters. I asked her before why she expected me to do these things with her, but she never invited my sisters. She said she was raising me and wanted to be a mother presence in my life, but they were grown already. I told her and my dad on separate occasions that I didn't want or need and wouldn't accept someone else into that kind of figure. I was ignored. I had a small run-in with my sisters when Dad was getting married because I said he shouldn't, and they said he should be allowed to move on and Mom would want him to be happy. When I explained what was going on, they realized why I felt that way. They tried talking to my dad, but it did no good. My dad's side of the family would all make comments that I was lucky to have another mother figure, or how I don't seem to give her the care or consideration she deserves. They would ask why I seemed to spend no time with her of my own free will, or why I was never loving towards her. My dad told me I should show her more love and affection, and he told me I made her feel left out when I didn't tell her stuff or when I made plans with others but not her. I know some people would love to have someone like this in their lives, but I want the same relationship my sisters have with her, but more is expected. So Christmas Day came and everyone was at our house for Christmas, minus my mom's family. My dad and his wife gave me a card from my parents, and my sisters got them with Dad and his wife. Then when it became time for family photos, we got one with the three of us and Dad, but then my grandparents wanted me in the family one with my dad and his wife, but my sisters weren't expected to be in it. I tried to step out, and my dad's wife said it wasn't a family photo without their kid. This was the point where I lost it, and I told her I'm not her kid. She's not my mother figure, that she's Dad's wife, just like she is to my sisters, and I want to keep it that way. I said I do not love her, and I hate how they all treat her like she has suddenly become a parent to me. My sisters were on my side, but my dad was furious, and his wife cried and cried and cried as I continued on. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It's so hard for kids. Your mother passed, and they act like she's just someone easy to replace. You spent 11 years of your life with her love, her presence, her education. She can't be replaced. Your stepmother should have let you had time to appreciate her. Most people don't understand that being a mother is not just being a woman with a kid in her life. It's a process. Time, joy, bad moments. Kids and parents make that relationship grow with lots of moments, and we do become parents with our kids, and we learn from them as much as they can learn from us. I don't know if this woman is a good mother, but she can't force you to be her daughter as long as you remember your mother. And the worst to me is the way that they get rid of your sisters not being part of the family. What? They are part of your father's family. More than your stepmother, of course. They're his blood. How can he get rid of them for a family photo? This part disgusts me so much. Everyone sucks here. Would have been not the jerk, but needlessly hurting her with an "I don't love you" makes you a bit of a jerk too. My manager offered me a mystery box of stuff from her basement. I've been working at my job for a while now, since a little bit into university, I guess. Friendly workplace, great pay for part-time work, and I spend a lot of time talking to my manager in the mornings when opening up the store. So we're pretty friendly and on great terms. The other day, when opening up, she just bluntly asked me if I wanted to play the lotto. I of course said, "With money?" "No, with this box of stuff in my basement." "Well, what is it?" "It's a lotto. Yes or no?" I of course laughed a lot because anyone who doesn't tell you what they want to give you from their basement makes it instantly suspicious. And I tried to say no, but my inner gambler said yes. So now I'm waiting to receive a mystery box of stuff and I have no idea what it might be. She said she's going to bring it to work tomorrow after getting the cobwebs off of it. Should I be worried? I love my manager, but this is very suspicious. Any thoughts or guesses? Well, now you should decline. Getting the cobwebs off of it probably means it's going to be inspected, so nothing interesting will actually be included and you'll have nothing but a box of garbage. OP. I don't think it would be garbage, but she did jokingly compare it to when people find treasure in those antique sales. I plan to check it out at work, so any true junk doesn't go home with me. I have way too much already here that my mom would not want it. Update. Well, tonight was my work holiday party, and I ended up getting a ride home from her afterwards. As I'm getting out, she mentions that she still has the mystery lotto box with her now, and if I still wanted to play the lottery. Of course, I was expecting to look through it at work before taking any of it home, not right outside my house. And guys, I fully admit I was wrong. She handed me a 5-year-old completely unopened KitchenAid, a brand new KitchenAid. My brain short-circuited. I don't even think I'm still living in our reality anymore, but that may be the margarita from dinner talking. I have no words. I'm sitting on my kitchen floor looking at this beautiful silver beast of a mixer. I've been making my cookie dough by hand, and all the time we talked cooking in the mornings, I told her my plan to save for a KitchenAid and buy all those fancy attachments to go with it. Turns out she had an extra one sitting dusty in her basement from when she got her fridge. I can imagine how giddy she was when she found out you were saving up for one and she had one needing a home. I wonder if she was holding on to it for a special occasion like this. Sounds like an awesome manager who would probably love some homemade cookies. OP. Oh, absolutely. Earlier in the day, she asked what I was bringing to the last day work before the holiday, and when I suggested Rice Krispies, she seemed to find excuses against them. She definitely wants my holiday cookies again and admitted it was why she didn't wrap it. Is there a chance she lied about it being a random find because she wanted an excuse to get you something you wanted? OP. No, she and her husband apparently got it for free when they got their new fridge. It says 2017 inside, but looks absolutely fabulous. In retrospect, me grilling her by bringing up all the odd things she's offered me in the past to base my suspicions on must have been hilarious to her. Am I the jerk for not depositing my Christmas check? For Christmas, I, 29 female, received a very generous check from my parents. I wasn't expecting it, and they never spend this much on gifts, so it took me by surprise. Not to give exact numbers, but it was 4 digits. I was very grateful and I thanked them for their generous gift. Everything was great until the day after Christmas. My dad would come up to me multiple times and asked if I deposited the check. I told him that I would and that I could deposit it through my banking app. Well, the day goes on and I forgot to deposit it. The 27th comes along and I get home from work and my dad gets on me again and asks if I deposited the check. I tell him no and he seemed annoyed and again told me to deposit it. Well, as you can probably guess, the day ends with me again forgetting to deposit the check. Now it's today, the 28th, and my mom texts me while I'm at work asking if I deposited the check. I told her no, and she must have told Dad because he started angry texts with me. I asked you to do something and you didn't do it. I'm so upset with you, OP. It's not even funny. This is a total disrespect of me and your mom. I asked you to deposit that check and you didn't. You know we did this because we love you, and you turn around and not deposit the check like I asked. I'm so upset. Just give me the check and I'll deposit it in your account if you're that lazy. Ungrateful. I was shocked when I read that at work, and I'm not gonna lie, it hurt a lot. I spent most of my lunch break in tears trying to think of a response. I love my dad a lot, but I felt like his anger was out of line and needlessly malicious. Unfortunately, while my dad is loving most of the time, he does have bouts of anger like this, like once a year, not often at all. He never gets physical or anything, but he's very loud. Eventually, I texted him back. Hi Dad, I'm sorry that this has made you upset. It's not that I'm ungrateful. I guess I just don't understand why this needs to be deposited right away, especially since it hasn't even been a week since I received your very generous gift. I love you very much, and I don't want this to damage our relationship, so I think it's no longer appropriate for me to accept the check. I'll give the check back when I get home. I thought that was the best and most mature way to reply. Maybe he'll calm down. No. He replied back with this. OP, when I tell you to do something, I want it done. When your mom asks you to do something, you do it. Now I want you to deposit that check today or I will disconnect your internet. We live in the same house. I ask for the simplest things and you can't do them for me. I have my reasons for wanting the check cashed. You should honor my wish. As far as I'm concerned, this has damaged our relationship. I've since deposited the check like he asked, but I'm really confused. Am I really in the wrong here, or is he blowing this out of proportion? Everyone sucks here. I don't like his "you do what I say" attitude, but also nobody should need to be told to do something that takes 30 seconds that many times. Even if you didn't understand why it needed to be cashed so quickly, you did understand it was important to him that it was. FYI, the best and most mature reply would have been, "You don't have to worry, Dad. As I'm sitting here on my lunch, doing nothing, instead of crying and throwing myself a pity party, I took the 30 seconds and deposited the check, so it's done." Trying to give his gift back was never going to calm the situation. It was only going to upset an already over-the-top angry man more. You're the jerk. Everyone has already posted the reasons you shouldn't just hold on to a personal check. Your parents' reaction made it seem like you do this all the time, procrastinate and forget. It's problematic for everyone. This case could be very problematic because it's money. It takes 30 seconds to do a deposit. You were asked repeatedly to deposit, but you just went on your merry way. Time to act your age and start doing what you say you'll do. Not the jerk. As others have said, your dad probably wants this check deposited so the money isn't floating in his account, and so it's given by the end of the fiscal year to write off on his taxes. However, you're 29, and he's just saying, "I expect you to do things whenever you're told," is absolutely ridiculous. He needs to use his big boy voice and say, "Hey, it's really important that you deposit this check tomorrow so I can write it off," or whatever. You were busy or forgetful, and perhaps a bit naive, but I wouldn't call you the jerk. Deposit the check ASAP. This makes it pretty clear that what he primarily cares about is getting the money off his taxes by the end of the fiscal year, and not about his actual kid, who he incidentally likes to give crap to. His actual 29-year-old kid who still lives at home and doesn't pay her own way. He's still paying for her internet, for example. Sounds like he's been dealing with this kid for a long time, and he's fed up. From what I gathered, OP didn't understand why this was so important. Dad just kept saying, "Do it," but not, "This is why." Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her dad? Please let us know. Tell Daddy-O to write the check to Reddit Boy and I next time. I'll cash it the same day, I promise. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she needs to move out before getting engaged? Leia is 20 and is currently working part-time while attending community college part-time. She contributes a small percentage of her income, less than 20%, to help with rent, utilities, household expenses, and the rest is hers to save and spend. She doesn't have a car and doesn't pay for any other expenses, insurance, etc., as those are all covered. She's been dating her girlfriend, Sophie, for almost 2 years now, and they're serious about each other. They're longish distance, about an hour away from each other, and only see each other once a month or so. Sophie lives with her family still as well, only she doesn't pay for household expenses and isn't responsible for any chores. Recently, they seem to be getting really hype on talking and fantasizing about getting married and picking out engagement rings, etc. Last night, Leia was telling me all these plans. Sophie is going to get me a sapphire engagement ring when she proposes. I think I'm going to wear this. And I was like, it all sounds really nice, hun, but I hope you're keeping your priorities in line. If you're grown enough to put a ring on your finger, you're grown enough to move out and support yourself. Leia wasn't happy to hear that and said they can move in together when they get married, and being engaged wouldn't really make any differences, so why should she have to move out right away if they get engaged? And I told her that personally, I don't believe in marrying someone you've never lived with. I think it's terrifically short-sighted, especially because Sophie is 21 and her mom still does everything for her, but also because neither of them truly understand the responsibilities and pressures of supporting themselves, especially in the current economy. I don't think there's anything wrong with having these fantasies and dreams of the partner, and I emphasize that. My intention was to caution her against getting swept away in and prioritizing it above other milestones that would help her survive independently. She told her aunt, my sister, about the conversation later, and her aunt called me and chewed me out for spitting on a harmless romantic fantasy. I said if it's really that harmless, she shouldn't be bothered by the idea of having to wait. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You seem to want to punish your kid for making future plans. Is it really a punishment to have to wait to become engaged? They've been together less than 2 years and are wholly unable to support themselves. Making future plans should include independence before marriage. I'm gonna call you a jerk, but I will say you have the right message, but poor delivery. You're the jerk, plain and simple. Not everyone needs to live together before marriage. Just because it makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense for everyone. Look at you effectively driving a wedge between you and your daughter for giving her an ultimatum. See if you get invited to their wedding. You're the jerk. Your 20-year-old daughter is an adult, and you don't have the right to tell her she can't get married. Kick her out of the house if you wish, but it will only create more problems for you. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. OP is trying to help her daughter get her priorities straight. Reddit be like, yeah, get married. Have her come move in with us. That way I get to support both of you. Am I the jerk for excusing myself from family dinner after being served a visibly disgusting dairy-free alternative? I, 39 male, am on a Christmas holiday with my wife's family. I have a dairy allergy, which means I can't eat butter, milk, yogurt, or cheese. Everyone in the family knows this, especially my mother-in-law, who's in charge of cooking. The first 2 nights for dinner, we had raclette. If you don't know what that is, you basically chop up your own vegetables and fry them on a little stand. Then you add cheese, and then you grill them on the same stand. Raclette is literally just fried chopped vegetables and potatoes unless you have the cheese, And furthermore, it takes about an hour to grill enough to feel full. It was okay though, I made it work. I just had extra nuts and chocolate. It is Christmas after all. So on day 3, we were to have a more substantial meal with mashed potatoes, except mother-in-law forgot me and put butter and milk in it, and instead of telling me and saying sorry, assigned this guy, my wife's sister's partner, who is known as extremely unreliable, depressed, who also happens to be very ill and not someone you'd want making your food at all, to make a dairy-free mashed potato. He boiled some potatoes and blended them, making a watery potato-only soup consistency broth, and this was served on the table in a saucepan with the rest of the meal that I could have. I asked for a bowl and poured out a portion of the potatoes and then offered it round to others. No one wanted any, including the guy who made it, and this was the point in which I had had enough. I got seriously angry. So I made an excuse about having promised to call my mom and picked up the remaining meal and bowl of watery potatoes and left to another room where I called my mom, and I poured it down the toilet and just ate bread until I was full. Wife came in absolutely fuming, telling me I'd hurt the guy's feelings and that it was so rude to leave the dinner table. I laid my cards on the table. Why have I not been thought of every single meal? I'm never asked what I want, and it's not hard to make things dairy-free or to buy some extra stuff, etc. Wife says I should just suck it up and that the guy made an effort. I replied that he's not a kid. If I made something that atrocious, I would not expect anyone to eat it, like he was a kid whose feelings I shouldn't hurt. I'm now in the doghouse. Apparently, no one bought my needing to call my mom's story. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I forgot to mention they all barely speak English, as we're in France. My wife is half French. This goes some of the way, perhaps to me not being involved in meal discussions. Edit 2. It's not really possible for me to cook my own food in this situation. It's hard to explain, but mother-in-law and that side of the family are the cooks, and we don't really get input, and we offer to help, and we're turned down. Edit 3. Mother-in-law has known me for 5 years and knows about my intolerance. She's just forgetting me, which is okay, it happens. I basically got mad because they served me something basically inedible and acted like nothing was wrong rather than just saying sorry and letting me eat bread. Final update. We just had breakfast. I apologized for leaving the table and doubled down on my mom phone call excuse and said it had nothing to do with the meal. The guy apologized for messing up the potatoes. I said they were fine and that I was sorry he thought I left the table because of him. Everyone seems okay now, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows the real reason I left. I'll play some chess with the guy later to mend things further with him. Final edit. I'm shocked by some of the replies. Some of you are clearly from a different planet. Yes, it is rude to leave dinner halfway through, and yes, it's rude to serve someone food they wouldn't want to eat. But neither is actually as terrible as some of you seem to think. Everyone makes mistakes from time to time, and sometimes there is a bit of drama. Everyone's friends now and has forgotten the incident. It was just an unfortunate situation where I didn't have a good out. Am I the jerk for wanting my wife to give up babysitting her niece for free? My wife quit teaching around 4 years ago for mental health reasons. My wife has shown no real desire to get back into the workforce. It's not like we're struggling per se, but I would be lying if I said I did not miss the extra income from when my wife was working. About a year into her leave, her sister became pregnant, which did take up a large portion of her free time. So over the last 2 years, my wife has been babysitting her niece for around 12 hours a day, 3 days out of the week. She's stressed, but does it because her sister claims she has no other option and cannot afford childcare. Even so, I do not think it's reasonable for my wife to do 12 hours a day for 3 days. So since my wife has not said anything for 2 years, I told my sister-in-law come next year, she needs to go to daycare because I'm not going to let my wife do what amounts to slave labor. My sister-in-law told me it was not my place to say what my wife could and could not do. I get this point of view, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not slightly upset that my wife can work 36 hours a week, 3 days a week, for free, but claims she's not ready to return to the workforce. That's a separate issue. The core issue here is my sister-in-law is taking advantage of my wife to provide free childcare. That's not okay. In the past, my wife did talk about pay, but my wife does not like to chase people for money. So since she never reminds them, they claim to always forget. Either way, I told my sister-in-law this is where we stand. My wife is upset with me since she claims it's not my place to say what she can and can't do. It's not my place to tell others how she's feeling. So, am I the jerk? For clarity's sake, I did talk this over with my wife many times. She's burnt out from watching her niece, but in her view, her sister has no other option. She has expressed how babysitting over these years, combined with teaching, has ruined all desire she once had for having kids of her own. As mentioned, my wife has spoken about pay, but since she does not like to chase people for money, she never gets any. She feels she should not have to remind people about the money. They should want to pay someone to help them, especially when it comes to family. She also is afraid her sister will become unstable if she loses her family support. I stepped in because I was sick of her being taken advantage of. I did not just sidestep her. I have tried many times over these years to put her foot down, but she loves her niece and does not want to see her suffer. My point is, she's destroying her mental health just like teaching. I was the one who encouraged her to quit because it was destroying her. All she did was wake up, go to work, come home, and go to sleep. It was a struggle to get her to eat sometimes. The same is happening with babysitting for my wife. One last edit since people said I should mention it. My wife is not doing this alone. When I get home, I do take over the last 3 hours and I drop the kid off at her mother's when she gets off work. We also offer food and supplies like diapers. My wife is also potty training my niece. She is more or less raising her niece 3 days out of the week. Not the jerk. Your update says that you pay for all of the baby-related supplies, including the diapers. She's not working for free. You are actively losing money for her to babysit. Not the jerk. It would have been better for your wife to speak up on her own account for her own personal growth, but she isn't there yet. Your family picks the kid up, drops the kid off, takes care of food, takes care of diapers and other things that kids need. Your sister-in-law is a complete freeloader. The sister-in-law has had since she was pregnant to figure out childcare, getting the father to help, looking into assistance programs, getting a different job, etc. Your wife should have put her foot down a long time ago. Then you wouldn't have had to help. Karen tells me I should have stayed in school, so I told her that I make more than her and her husband combined. I'm a steam fitter. I work on high-pressure pipes that move gases and liquids, and I work a lot of overtime. Because I hate working, I usually work like a madman for 7 months of the year, then I take the other 5 off. My brother is a teacher and the first person in our family to graduate from university. I've always been proud of him, and he's actually pretty awesome. He married another teacher, and they have 2 sons. His wife comes from a family of educated people. I think most of her relatives are college educated. My wife and I are expecting our first baby, and we had my parents and my brother's family over so we could announce it. I spent the day getting my smoker going early, and we set up for what I thought was going to be a nice visit and announcement. Full disclosure, my wife and I currently live in a manufactured home, a mobile home. We keep it tidy, and it has city water and power. I'm not sure why, but my sister-in-law decided that before dinner was the perfect time to tell her kids that they need to stay in school if they don't want to end up like me and my wife. I saw red, and I was about to let her have it, but my mom and brother told her that she was being rude and that she needed to apologize. She didn't. She doubled down and said that we were doing okay for the 2 of us, but what if we wanted to have kids? She just didn't want her kids to end up like us. I told my brother he needed to tell her to shut up or they needed to leave. She said that she was just thinking about our future and our kids' future. I told her that my kids would probably be okay as soon as her husband paid me back for his education that I paid for. My brother has no student loans because I paid for his education. I told her that my current house wasn't great, but that the construction across the road was our new house we were having built since my wife and I owned the quarter section of land our trailer is on. I then told her that since I make more money than her and my brother combined while only working a little over half a year, I think we'll be okay. I would not actually call in the loan to my brother. I know that they are living just within their means and do not have the money to pay me back. She got embarrassed and they left. I told my parents about the baby, and we had a ton of leftovers since 4 people had left. My parents, my wife, and my brother all said that I didn't need to lose my cool with her and that she meant well. My mom said that I was wrong to point out how much money I make. I don't know. I hated myself for pointing out that my brother is poor compared to me, but I didn't start the conversation. Not the jerk. She should not denigrate what you do for a living. Your brother should have told her that he owed you money. OP. I know. I just feel bad for bringing him into a fight that he didn't want. Not the jerk. She 100% started it and had it coming. It would have been more polite for you not to, sure, but it also would have been way more polite for her not to use you as a warning tale to your face. Can't believe she did that after you paid for her husband's education. She wanted to play the higher education game and lost. I don't understand why some college-educated people feel they are superior to everybody else. Some people would fall on their backsides if they knew how much some of these jobs pay. I know a guy who teaches at university and can't afford anything. I guess your only fault was that you could have chosen the higher road, but I don't fault you for going your route. Some people need to be educated, not the jerk. Yet another post showing education does not equal intelligence. My brother makes more money than any of my siblings, and he's an electrician that started working straight out of school at 16. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister-in-law? Please let us know. That teacher honestly deserved much worse than what you gave her. My girlfriend has a gift, and I'm terrified. Okay, this sounds insane, but I don't know anymore. I, 27 male, have known my girlfriend, who's 24, for around 7 years, and she's always been a bit odd. Not in a bad way, but she's very empathetic and too kind for her own good. She also has chronic depression and anxiety and BPD. A few months into us dating, she would do this thing where she would text me to hydrate, eat, stretch, relax my muscles, the works. I didn't think much of it honestly, like those are very common things people forget to do. Then she got more specific, an example being, hey, pop your left shoulder or it'll start to hurt later tonight. Or she would buy me foods I was craving without me asking, or send me reassurance when I was feeling low. Even those, however, I was able to brush off with ease, like what nearly 30-year-old doesn't have aches and pains, you know? It was like that for months, and occasionally I'd ask her how she knew I hadn't hydrated all day, or how she knew I wanted one of my cravings, to which she would always respond with, "It's a gift. Cool, huh?" I figured she was bluffing and kept getting lucky. Now I don't think that's the case. Last week she called off work and rushed over. I asked her why she felt the need to do that, and she said she felt compelled. An hour later, we got the news a family member I was close to had passed away. Here I have to note, she is close with my parents, but they don't talk outside of family gatherings, so there's no way she would have known prior to the call. She stayed by my side the rest of the week and confided in me that she was a different religion than I am. She's a Hellenistic pagan and I'm a Baptist, and then she got the urge to call off work when she was cleaning up her altar. I was a bit shaken up, but ultimately I was just glad she was there with me. This weekend, we went to visit her dad. She suggested it because he lives outside of a tourist trap town and we could use the vacation. I agreed and it was a fantastic trip. On the ride there, she confessed she doesn't like my job because it's dangerous. It wouldn't be, and I don't think it is at any of the other shops, but we simply don't have the equipment to do what we claim we can, so we have to jerry-rig quite a bit. I explained this to her and she just reiterated she wants me to be careful. I promised I would and she dropped it. I've tried my best to not tell her about how sketchy it gets sometimes, or that we actually had a workplace incident recently, but the way she talked, it felt like she knew. Throughout the drive from her dad's to the town, the drive was anxiety-inducing. We're talking heavy rain, plus bad drivers, and my car was acting up. Yet my usually anxious girlfriend with car wreck trauma was unfazed. When I inquired about it at dinner, she said that she knew we wouldn't wreck. I asked her how she could possibly know that, and she said, "I have a gift, and I should just trust her on this." It was hard, but I did my best. When I was dropping her off, she warned me to be on the lookout for deer and to drive safe. Two somewhat normal statements given where we live, but I didn't think it meant, hey, there's gonna be a deer in the middle of the road, so don't hit it. It was just the icing on the cake, and I still don't get this gift. The next morning, she's gushing about how much she liked our weekend and how much she loved spending time with me, how we need to do it again, blah, blah, blah. She then mentions how I need to be careful on the drive there. Lo and behold, there was a wreck on my commute. I got to witness it. At lunch, she asks if I'm okay, which I kind of had just gotten a cut on my arm. I'm a mechanic, so it's common. I asked her if she could stop being so weird and to just chill because life is being weird and I'm not feeling it. She said, "Okay, but how do you think I feel? I'm just stuck like this." I apologized and she agreed she would chill and told me she didn't mean to scare me, but now I'm super weirded out by her. I would change companies, to be honest. You shouldn't work someplace with crappy workplace safety. I bet she knows about this post. Hey man, it sounds like you have a good thing going. A girl who loves you, likes spending time with you, and dotes on you. That's better than any man has the right to ask for. Don't self-sabotage. Just be happy that you're with someone that worries for you. Also, consider a job change. Dangerous working conditions should be unacceptable. The money can't be worth your life. Also, if your girl is a wizard, then that's cool. Good luck, my dude. Edit to clarify. The line about better than any man has the right to ask for was poorly written. Allow me to clarify. I've been on Reddit for a while, and it's rare to see a happy relationship on here that has significantly lowered my standards on what a good relationship is. I also phrased it from a male perspective because I'm a guy. I should have written, better than any partner has the right to ask for, because in my opinion, this girl goes hard on the paint, more so than one should expect from just a girlfriend. Lodger refuses to leave. He's drawn up a fake rental contract saying he has a right to stay in my home for a year. I took in a lodger 4 months ago on a rolling month-to-month contract to help with the cost of living. They have begun treating me like a slave, so I put my foot down and told them they have 6 weeks to move out. He stated that this will not be happening and sent a message to the WhatsApp group of a fake contract he has made that has my signature on it. He's told me that any attempt to move him out will mean trouble for me, but he hasn't put this in writing. So far, my wife's ashes have gone missing, only for him to announce that he found the urn and it would be a shame if it got lost permanently. I really need help. He's blackmailing you and has tried to defraud you. Call the police on him and have them removed immediately. For lodgers, all you have to do is give them reasonable notice. Often, this is a minimum of 24 hours to 1 week. But if there's a threat to yours or your property's safety, you can change the locks and ask them to leave immediately. It'll be easier to do this with the police being there, obviously, so you might want to save this until they come to question your lodger about thefts and fraud. OP. Thank you. I'll file a report while I'm out walking my dog. He deliberately left some dark chocolate on a kitchen counter this afternoon and said, "Oops, maybe I wouldn't be so clumsy if I didn't have you threatening to evict me." I would be putting his stuff outside and changing the locks pronto. What an evil person. OP. I know. I was charging $350 a month, basically to cover my wife's share of the mortgage. He was fine at the start, just grew worse and worse. The heating stays at 24 Celsius. I said it stays at 24. You're out of milk. Get some on your lunch break. You need to clean the bathroom. Are you trying to avoid confrontation? Or is he a big guy or giving off dangerous vibes? Sorry to hear about your wife, but you don't deserve to be treated like that. Put your foot down. OP. He's massive, 6'6" easily, and built like a brick house. Doesn't help that I'm not so big. Call the police, explain the situation. They'll be able to tell the WhatsApp is fake and make him hand over the ashes. OP. I have the ashes. I took them and my wife's jewelry box, etc., and I gave them to a neighbor that I trust. Update. I went to the police station on the evening of my first post. I explained what was going on, that I had a lodger who was refusing to leave and pretending that he was an actual tenant. Police agreed to return with me that evening for the eviction, but I had to wait close to 4 hours at the station. Whenever the officers arrived at my house, the lodger opened the front door and spoke with the officers. He presented them with the fake contract, stating that he was renting this place, that I was the landlord, and that I was attempting an illegal eviction. At this point, the police informed me that they didn't have enough evidence to make a decision on what amounted to a civil matter. I tried to enter my property. The lodger stopped me and said I was trespassing, as a landlord legally has to give 24 hours notice if they wish to enter. The police sided with the lodger and informed me I would have to find alternative accommodation. I ended up having to stay in a dog-friendly B&B for a full week while I spoke with my homeowner's insurance and my bank. I also tried to escalate with the police, but they refused to get involved in a civil matter. Upon returning to my property after a couple of days, I discovered my keys no longer work, so it appears the lodger has changed the locks. I'm now living for free with a friend from my church while my home insurance is working with a solicitor and hopefully my bank to apply more pressure to the police to take action against the lodger. Not a happy situation at the present, I'm afraid. Update 2. Lodger has engaged in several dubious practices which makes it hard for eviction to continue. This includes providing a fake name to me originally, so eviction documents were served on him with the wrong name, getting court hearing delayed by feigning illness, taking on his own lodgers and subtenants, a woman and her daughter, and signing them up for a 1-year rental contract in my home. My insurance company and solicitor work on this matter. Not easy, not going well. Thank you to the local Chinese community and very local people as well for their support. The end is in sight, and I will soon be back in my home. Quitting my HR job with no notice. Incoming rant because I don't have many people in my life to listen. My company has 650 employees. HR is a team of myself, HR assistant, and my boss, HR director. I've worked here for 4 years and haven't received a pay raise since 2021, which was only $1 to begin with. Despite so many promises from the owners and HR director, I'm paid less than $25 an hour. My boss makes 6 figures. My boss is hardly here. I would estimate she works 25 hours per week while I regularly work 40 to 55. She also gets to work from home routinely. I was told I cannot because technically it's only for high-level executives. The misuse of power by my boss is crazy, and the owners shrug their shoulders and turn a blind eye, all because she's married to one of their sons. I'm basically doing what should be at least 3 to 4 people's worth of work every week. Long story short, I'm quite young and I only have experience, no degree. So for a while, I thought this would be the best that I could get, given my lack of a degree. But I just got a much better paying offer where I will be a part of a real team and can work from home 3 times per week. I'm quitting this Friday. No notice. My boss will be doomed with year-end projects, and she has a vacation to Hawaii planned in December. I don't feel any remorse after countless times of being told, "There's no way you can take those dates off. I'll need you here." And, "You know the company can't budget in a pay raise right now, but give it 6 months. You'll see." Oh, and by the way, I'm the only person who knows how to use our HRIS, HR computer software. Good luck to them. No one else ever bothered to learn it because they rely on me. I guess my only point in posting this here is to let it all out and to say, employers better treat people with respect, especially those who act as the glue holding a lot together, because we can just walk out and leave the company struggling. Edit. Wow, I have quite the support on this subreddit. Thank you. To respond to a few comments of concern I'm getting. 1. I'm not worried about references. That's definitely coming from mostly older people. Trust me, you'll be fine without the input of your snotty boss. My boss doesn't provide references anyways. She's talked at length in the past about how she would never do that because people should be able to sell themselves. Well, I sold myself. She will be so proud. 2. I think a lot of people don't understand what all HR assisting is. No, I don't fire people or punish anyone. Think about the fact someone has to enter your information into the insurance websites. Someone also has to onboard new hires. That's the type of work I'm doing. Not that I should have to justify myself, but I've got a lot of DMs saying they hope my next job doesn't work out because HR doesn't deserve success. My next job isn't HR at all. With that said, yes, I understand HR directors are directly involved in protecting the interest of their company against employees. Yes, my next job is secured. I've signed the offer letter and my background check is complete. I have a start date. My next job is union as well, which is a dream for me. I was sick during lockdown for 3 weeks. I literally couldn't come into work, and let's just say HR was crumbling for that short amount of time. My first week back was full of overtime because nothing got done while I was gone. So yes, I'm confident this is going to hurt them for at least a couple of months. But really, my main point in leaving without notice is the fact that they would never do the same for me. I work for awful people. They don't even deserve the courtesy. This is wonderful. As others have mentioned, do not tell them where you're going. Don't update LinkedIn. Don't announce anything on social media. Steal my job? Fine. But if any issues come up, you are not my problem. So until recently, I worked at my university in an admin position. I loved the job. My boss, Ellie, was really happy with me, but I was temporary. And when my contract came up for renewal, my friend, B, who was also an admin assistant with a permanent contract at the uni, went to the dean and said, basically, that she could do everything I was doing as part of her already existing duties. So there was no need to renew my contract. I knew this because B told me that she had done this because she wanted to work with Ellie, despite Ellie not wanting to work with B. Ellie was just as upset about this as I was and asked the dean to reconsider. No luck. Ellie and I had started a whole bunch of projects together, which we'd split the work for, but I had created the bulk of the content because Ellie had other responsibilities, and I'd handled a lot of the communication with the few dozen people we had roped into helping. The same day B took over, she sent out a bunch of emails talking about the projects Ellie and I had completed together, and in these emails, B presented it all as her own work, with input from Ellie. Ellie apologized to me for B doing that and said it was inappropriate. I still had access to all of the materials and had created about 80% of them entirely alone. So I very simply locked everything down. B messaged asking where the material was. I responded that as I am no longer employed by the uni, I no longer have access to confidential materials, and if no one but me can access it, That's B's issue to sort out. The materials contain everything from promo pieces to email templates to spreadsheets regarding annual leave. The remaining 20% of content, which both myself and B had access to, was all fairly rough, had some typos, some incorrect dates, the wrong titles in a few places, incomplete paragraphs, minor things like that, all of which were on my list to fix because only I knew about them, and all of which B overlooked and just sent out. As a result, B has signed lecturers up for events that they're not available for. She has had to remake all of my content from scratch. She has not sent out a single email that's 100% correct. She can't get into the social media I created. She can't access the shared inbox I made. She's advertised events with the wrong date, time, and content, and she's behind on everything. I know all of this because Ellie complains about it to me every time I see her, and I did admit all of this to Ellie, and she says I'm being reasonable here. And B messaged me almost daily to tell me I'm an awful person because I won't share any of my resources with her. It's the only reason I've not blocked B. The updates. I'm also getting regular emails from various departments and people who don't know B has taken over my job yet, asking why they've been put down to present a talk at uni on a day they'll be on another continent or something like that. And I've just responded that this is B's job now. But everything was fine when I left, so clearly whatever happened, B needs to fix it. B now hates me, but that's not my problem either. I'm 31, female. My husband, who's 50, asked me for a paternity test because he thinks I cheated. We've been together for almost 9 years, and during all of these years, we tried to conceive, but it was impossible even though we had tried everything. So we gave up, and 5 years ago, we decided to adopt 2 kids who are 6 and 8. Since then, we haven't done any treatment to get pregnant again, but we haven't stopped trying to conceive naturally, even though we knew it was impossible. Well, I got pregnant, and he didn't react like I thought he would after years of trying. When I found out I was pregnant, I was already in my 17th week. So since then, I have had a lot of doctor's appointments to check that everything's okay, and everything's perfect, but he was so distant that I couldn't even be happy about it. He went with me to most of my doctor's appointments, but he never showed interest in the baby. He's always quiet, and in the last 2, he didn't want to go with me. And I felt very hurt by that, because he loves our kids with his life, and seeing him act this way towards our daughter, who was not even born yet, really hurt me. When I asked him what was wrong, he made excuses like he didn't want more kids because he's old, and he didn't want this baby to be bullied at school for having an old father and things like that. And at first, I understood it because I know that our kids sometimes receive ridicule for that. Not because he looks old, because the truth is that he looks very young for his age, but because when our kids tell their friends that their father is 50, all of them assume that he's extremely old and on the verge of passing on, and that hurt our kids a lot. So I believed his excuses and I tried to understand his concerns. But then he continued acting strange, and from one day to the next, he asked me for a paternity test. I asked him why, and he said he didn't believe our daughter was his because he could never get anyone pregnant, not even when he was younger. And I know that's true because he always told me that he tried to conceive for years with his ex-girlfriend but was never successful. I understood his fears, so I accepted the paternity test because I really know that I never hooked up with anyone other than him, and I had nothing to hide. Well, the test came back positive, and he apologized for having doubted me, and I told him that I forgave him because it was understandable that he doubted me. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel bad because he didn't trust me. I never gave him a reason to doubt me, and yet he believed that I deceived him, and even worse, he thought I cheated on him, that I got pregnant and made him believe the baby was his. And thinking about it hurts me a lot, and I'm afraid that this pain won't go away. These days, he's been different with everything that has to do with our daughter. He's excited. He's bought her many things and is constantly talking about her to everyone. And part of me wants to feel happy and understand him, but another part of me is still hurt. How can I overcome something of this magnitude? Edit. For those who asked, before deciding to adopt, we visited several specialists, and the last one told him that it was impossible for him to have biological kids, that if nothing worked until that moment, it's because it was impossible. And I don't care what you have to say about our age gap because I didn't ask about it. It was never a problem, and it's not a problem now either. It emotionally hurts to be doubted when you know you're loyal. I'd imagine you brave-faced it, and now you have feelings caught up to you that your husband needs to understand and validate. I hope you ask him for couples therapy. Asking for the test maybe is understandable if he just truly believed to his core he was sterile. But the way that he acted when he was struggling with his doubts hurt you deeply. The sooner y'all can hash out what this meant for each of you individually, for your relationship, and for your growing family, the better.
You have a right to have ongoing feelings about what happened. If he's a good man, he'll want to honor those feelings and work through them with you, even if it takes time and therapy. 22 and 41? Yeah, there's a reason he went after you. Don't expect him to be mature for his age. She says age doesn't matter, but then his number one concern is his age. He's married to someone 19 years younger than him. Don't expect him to be rational or emotionally intelligent or mature. 22 and 41? And you thought he was going to be a catch? The age difference is glaring and worries me for you. Why are you making excuses for a man half a century old? He basically said, "I don't trust you." And you made excuses, and when he was proven wrong, he swept it under the rug with a shrug and apology. Why are you minimizing this betrayal? How would he feel if one day you told him you thought he was cheating without any reason to believe so and demanded proof that an affair didn't exist? He would be livid, wouldn't he? So why aren't you? Good point. Why aren't you upset at his jerk behavior? Who does he think he is insisting on a paternity test? I'd insist on going through his phone because I bet you'd make some interesting discoveries. Several specialists said it was impossible for him to have biological kids. She has every right to be upset and feel hurt, but take a step back and see it from his side also. No, he didn't come to her with his concern. He sulked and lied for months while being emotionally distant. If he were concerned, he would have gone to a doctor after she got pregnant and discussed his concerns. He was not told he was infertile. A 50-year-old man was told if it didn't happen now, it probably won't. His first thought was, well, my wife cheated. Unless she has some proven record of lying to him or two-timing him, why is this his first recourse and not a last-ditch effort? He even took it out on his own kid by being uninterested in her until a piece of paper confirmed it was his. That's BS and no way to treat your wife. These comments are making me crazy. If you're told it's extremely unlikely after 30 off years of trying with 2 different women that you're never going to get someone pregnant, it's entirely understandable to believe your partner cheated. That age gap? Ew. The guy's old enough to be your dad. These age gap stories are just so pathetic. Loser old guys in their 40s wanting to marry girls in their 20s. And the only reason that the 20-something-year-olds go for him is because he has money. You literally signed yourself up for this, and we need to do something about these insane age gaps that literally everyone seems to be okay with now. My boyfriend, who's 22, of 6 years, got me a birthday gift. Am I, 23 female, just ungrateful? My boyfriend had been going on for weeks about how he was so excited about what he planned for me on my birthday this year. He kept going on and on about how it was going to be so amazing and he was so excited. I genuinely love surprises, and he planned for it to be a surprise, so I was okay with him not telling me and preferred it that way. He was aware that I planned on going on a trip during my birthday though, so he changed the date to take me to this place a couple of days before I left on my trip with friends. He told me he couldn't come on the trip. I initially wanted him to. So we go to this place on Halloween. I'm in costume, by the way, and it's an action figure making place. The best way I can describe this place is it's a place where they take 3D photos of you or whoever you bring and turn it into a modeled action figure of the person. To get a toy made of yourself, basically. When we arrived, he asked for 2 to be made, one of himself and one conjoined of the both of us. The conjoined one was apparently my birthday gift, and the one of himself was for him. Here's the thing if you haven't caught on. I do not have any interest in action figures or toys. I don't like toys or action figures. But guess who does? Him. He literally collects toys and action figures. These toys were extremely expensive to make, by the way. I believe $300 to $600 for a 9-inch toy. Am I ungrateful? I'm not happy that this is my gift. It took everything in me to ask to not buy it. But something in me knew he would regardless. I don't feel like this gift was really for me, nor do I feel like it was an appropriate birthday gift. It wasn't even at least our anniversary, and he got me an expensive toy of me and him conjoined for my birthday. I have very mixed feelings, and I feel bad that it's something that I know I would never personally want for my birthday, but something he likes. Not to mention, my main concern now has been the fact that he hasn't even proposed to me yet, and he has so many excuses about the expenses of a ring, etc., but had no issue dropping $600 on an action figure toy, and bragged about how it was nothing to his pockets. I'm very aware he knows the type of stuff I actually like and care about by now. I just did not expect expensive action figures for my birthday, and I feel like I'd look like a jerk if I said anything about it. Congratulations on your Homer bowling ball. When Homer from The Simpsons bought his wife a bowling ball on her birthday, even though she hates bowling. Well, if you don't want it, I know someone who does. At first I was like, oh cool, I want to see myself as an action figure. But then yours isn't even you alone, it's combined. And his is alone? So this gift is for him then. I don't blame you at all. No, I don't think you're being ungrateful, but it does appear he thinks of himself first. You're not ungrateful, you just want a partner who cares enough to know you better. You're not being ungrateful. If you want a healthy relationship, you need to talk to him about how you're feeling. I'm referring to this gift situation, but also how he throws money around when he wants to, but uses finances as an excuse to not get engaged. You're so worried about looking like a jerk for bringing this up when he obviously wasn't worried about how his gift giving would come across. Why waste so much time considering his feelings when he clearly doesn't consider yours at all? He does things like this because you quietly accept it. He will continue to be this way until he has a reason to change. You've given him no reason to. Actually, the exact opposite. You're asking strangers how to tiptoe around a man-child. I have no advice for that because I do not do it. OP. Ouch. But I needed that, which is why I asked strangers. Thank you for the bluntness. I feel like if I confronted him beforehand, he would make me feel like I'm wrong. I didn't mention, but this has happened similarly before on my 19th birthday. I told him I wanted to go out to eat at a specific place. It was a well-known franchise, and he deliberately took me to the place he liked to eat at. And we had eaten there already 3 times before, a local cafe with a balcony. I directly approached him about how I didn't like that he took me there and how I felt like he did what he wanted on my birthday and not what I wanted. He immediately called me ungrateful and had a fit and was acting like I ruined the day. I spent my whole birthday trying to cheer him up. He even cried. You're the jerk. Yes, you are ungrateful. He did something very nice for you and spent a fortune on it. We need to stop normalizing making days all about ourselves. It's selfish and honestly just ridiculous. Birthdays are meant to be celebrated with our loved ones, and if he loves action figures, then his birthday gift was literally combining the 2 things he loves, you and action figures. Do you really just want some boyfriend who will get you flowers and chocolates instead? Are you literally that basic? He honestly deserves so much better, and I know he will find it. You remind me so much of my hubby's ex. Nothing he did was ever good enough for her. Guess where she's at now? Literally living under a bridge. Am I the jerk for kicking my daughter out of my house for being pregnant? I, 45 female, have a 27-year-old daughter. She has 6 kids between the ages of 1 and 10. There are 3 different fathers. She received child support from 2 of them, and she's still with the 3rd one, and they've been together for 5 years. My daughter works part-time, and her fiancé is a chef full-time. They've lived with us for the past 1.5 years due to getting evicted from their last home. The kids in them have our upstairs bedrooms, there's 2, but that's still crowded for 6 kids. They're constantly asking me for help with phone bills. My husband and I have asked for no rent so that they'd be able to save money to get a home, which I do not believe they were doing. I've put up with loud voices throughout all hours and waking up at different hours to cater to the kids because I love my grandkids. I never complain to my daughter because I believe family is very important. It's just that my kids are all grown up. My youngest moved out 4 years ago, and my husband and I had hopes to remodel. We didn't expect them to be living here for this long. On Christmas Eve, my daughter gathered us all around and announced that they were pregnant with baby number 7. Everyone was all excited, but I felt dread. That would mean another kid in our house with not much room. I looked over at my husband and I could tell he felt the same. We discussed later and decided we were going to ask them to move out. Last night at dinner, I brought it up to my daughter and her boyfriend, and we told them they have 2 months to find a place because we can't have another kid here. My daughter started crying, saying she couldn't believe I'd throw her out to the streets for having a baby, and this was completely unfair and not enough time. I told her I was sorry. It was painful for me as well, but these living conditions were impossible. She demanded I give her more time or she'd go to the courts, and I told her, newsflash, the courts only give you 30 days. She then said my grandkids were going to be homeless because I was selfish. She made a Facebook post asking for rooms to rent because she's pregnant and has nowhere to go, and her family doesn't care about her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They're basically using you for free rent, bill money, a babysitter, and probably to clean up after all of these kids. She isn't raising 6 kids, you are. The fact she viewed adding on a 7th as a positive situation, positive enough to announce it on Christmas, shows that she's pretty much planned on you continuing that trend, and moving out was never a plan. There's helping family, there's abandoning family, and then there's being used by family. You're in the lattermost category, unfortunately. Best hopes for a good outcome in the long run. Not the jerk. It's on her and her baby daddy to figure this out. They are absolutely taking advantage of you, and the fact that she's having another kid that they can't afford, that's a big problem and extremely immature and stupid. Not the jerk. And let her cry on Facebook all she wants to, and when someone criticizes you, tell them, "Oh, thank you for opening your home for my daughter, her boyfriend, and their 7 kids. I'll let her know she can start moving in next week." Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for kicking her daughter out or not? Please let us know. Some of these stories really make me appreciate how simple my own life actually is. My wife ruined my staycation, and I'm trying not to lose it. I work a very demanding job. There are very few, if any, times during the year when I have the luxury to take a few days off to myself. When I get home from work, between cooking dinner, doing dishes, and taking care of chores around the house, I get maybe 2 hours a day to relax. My wife gets upset if I don't spend all of that time with her, so I don't get to watch my shows, play my video games, or read my books. I've told her many times that I need time to relax and do things that I enjoy, and she'll agree with me, but then start giving me things to do or try to get me to do something else with her within 30 seconds of me starting. So 2 months ago, I asked my boss if I could use a week of vacation between Christmas and New Year's. It's a slow week, and we made arrangements to ensure that I'm covered during those days for emergencies. I told my wife that this will be my me time to do all of the things that I want, to de-stress from life and to catch up on the things that I really enjoy. I also plan to clean up my office and organize my files, which is something that has stressed me out for a while. My wife agreed and told me that she was very happy I'm going to be able to do some self-care. This weekend, she informed me that she had scheduled the chimney cleaners for Wednesday because I'd be home. She wrote down a list of things for me to do. Go to Home Depot, clean up the yard debris, pick up groceries for the week, go through boxes in the basement, and organize everything. I politely informed her that I would not be doing any of those things, that this week was about self-care and addressing my needs, and with only 4 real days, minus Christmas, I was not going to add additional tasks. She told me to just get to what I had time for. On Tuesday, my wife decided to work from home. This prevented me from organizing my office since we share an office. I put on one of my video games and started to play. 10 seconds later, my wife came flying in and told me to turn it off because it was too loud while she was trying to make phone calls. I told her to shut the office door, but she told me it was entirely too loud and sounded unprofessional in the background. So I pulled out a book and I started reading on the couch. I did that for about an hour when my wife decided to come into the living room and work on her laptop. She turned on the Kardashians. I sarcastically asked if that wouldn't make her sound unprofessional in the background. She replied, "I'll just mute it if a call comes in," which is exactly what she did. Then, after 15 minutes of trash TV and loud business phone calls, I went into our bedroom to read my book. At this point, my wife kept interrupting me every few minutes. "How's the book? How much do you have to go? What's it about? Do you want lunch? What do you want for dinner? Are you still on the same book? Do you want to watch something on TV? Am I ruining your day? Do you not want to spend time with me? Do you know where the black water bottle went?" Eventually, it was time for dinner, so I just gave up and put my book down. Today, she decided to work from home again. Oh no. I told her it wasn't necessary, but she told me that she wanted to work from home. I replied, "Yes, but no offense, I do not want you here." She laughed and said, "I know, it's your self-care week, but I don't feel like going in. We can both be here." So I could not be in the office. I had to be up early for the chimney cleaners. I could not be in the living room because they were working in there. I went into our bedroom and started reading my book. She came in and informed me that I needed to stay with the chimney sweepers in case they had questions because she had work calls that she had to take. I wasn't able to concentrate with them working, so I just sat there. When they finally finished, I took my book out and started reading. That's when my wife decided to come out into the living room and turn on the Kardashians again. I migrated into the bedroom, laid down on the bed, and continued reading my book. 10 minutes later, she came in with her laptop and laid down on the bed next to me. I did my best to ignore the typing and phone calls and just concentrate on my book. Then she started snoring. Not heavy breathing, but literal congested wheezing, choking, and snoring. I sighed, got up, headed into the living room, laid down on the couch, and put one of my shows on. That lasted 15 minutes before my wife came in and started talking through it. She kept asking questions about it, criticizing it, talking about how it's clear why she wouldn't watch it, asking how many episodes there are, how long each episode is, and so on. Finally, after needing to rewind the same part 8 times, I accepted defeat and turned it off. My wife informed me that she thinks she's going to work from home the rest of the week. Oh no. She saw the look on my face, smiled, and said, "I know I'm cramping your style and ruining your week off, but it's a quiet week and it works for me to be at home." I told her, "I love spending time with you." "Do you?" "But I need my alone time. I haven't been able to do anything for me and it's damaging to my mental health." She insists that she understands and she wants me to have time to myself, but it seems to be in theory only, not in practice. I found myself snapping at her and being tense with her, and I do not want that. I'm afraid that I'm going to explode. I don't know how to make myself any clearer, but she doesn't seem to be taking me seriously. After reading this, I need a week away from your wife. I don't have any advice. I couldn't be in a relationship with someone who was that pushy and clingy. At this point, go to a hotel or a motel for the rest of the week. Don't even say anything. Just go. As an introvert that needs to recharge by myself, this would drive me nuts. Do you have money to take yourself to a hotel for the next 2 days? Because if you do, I would do it. Once you're home afterwards, I would sit her down and tell her why you needed to leave the house for 2 days. I get wanting to spend time together, but the fact that she is that codependent on you that she follows you to every room, even while working, is insane. I would ask for couples counseling because she doesn't seem to care what you're saying. Good luck. Am I the jerk for refusing to childproof my house? My wife and I have a daughter who's 23, we'll call Katie. She has an almost 1-year-old son named Jesse. Katie still lives at home with us, which isn't ideal, but we've had to make do with the situation. My wife has basically become a second mother to Jesse, and we have both been helping out Katie as much as possible, as Katie and the father are no longer together. He still does his part, but since Katie lives with us, Jesse is with us most of the time. I would rather not have Katie still living with us, but she had nowhere else to go, so we couldn't kick her out with her kid. My wife doesn't have as much of a problem with her living at home as I do, but the main thing that annoys me is that Katie spends her money on stupid things that she doesn't need instead of saving up for her own place. We've given her so much, and she basically just throws it back in our faces. Jesse is starting to walk around furniture and is getting more adventurous. So Katie bought corner protectors and cabinet locks to put around the house, as well as baby gates. She came to me and asked me if I could help her put them on stuff and put up the gates, but I told her that I didn't want to start putting all of that around my house. She said we need them up to keep Jesse from getting hurt, but I reminded her that Jesse has a whole nursery that he can learn to walk in, so he doesn't need to be walking around the kitchen or living room or any other room, and it's her responsibility to make sure he doesn't get hurt. We got into an argument about it, and I basically told her that she should be saving her money to get her own place where she can do whatever she wants, instead of buying more things to put in my house. She got pretty upset, but I think she got the message because she hasn't talked about putting them up since. My wife asked me why I wouldn't help her out, and I told her that if we start childproofing our house, it will give Katie the impression that we're willing to accommodate her and Jesse for as long as she wants, and that she can live with us for who knows how long. I just don't want her thinking that she can live with us forever, because as much as I love her and Jesse, the sooner they move out, the better, because it's a lot of extra work for my wife and I. You honestly sound like a jerk in general. How much of a hand did you have in raising your daughter? 15 minutes a day? You're the jerk because it's not the baby's fault you have issues with your daughter. What is it with some people who just can't wait to get their adult children out of their house? Don't you love your kids? You're the jerk because you're being passive-aggressive and inconsistent with your outbursts. Your marriage is at risk, and it's not because of your daughter or your grandkid. You need to be on the same page as your wife and not allowing your daughter to be between you. This is unhealthy and unfair to her. One parent saying, "Take care of yourself. It's okay to spend on self-care. Of course you can childproof our house. Ask Dad to help you. We're here for you." And the other parent silently resenting every minute of it. Then you finally have a chance to put your foot down and you do so on corner guards and cabinet locks that would make sense even if your grandson did not live with you but was simply in your wife's care often. This is so toxic to everyone involved, and it risks breaking up your marriage. You and your wife must decide where your boundaries lie on this, then bring them to your daughter so she can plan accordingly. You want your daughter to start acting like an adult, and you don't want to be the one raising her kid. You want her to grow up and learn responsibility. You can't expect these idiots on Reddit to side with you because most of them don't even know what responsibility means. I'm sorry your daughter turned out to be such a disappointment and that your wife enables her to continue being a leech. Don't let these Reddit kids get to you. They are some of the worst people you could ever ask advice from, unless you're asking which anime you should waste your time watching or which new video game you should start playing. That's about the extent of how much they know in life. Bruh, what's wrong with anime? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. Work tried to punish me and it backfired. This happened around 2006 to 2008. I was a tax associate at the most well-known tax service in North America. I did very well in the class you take, which determines your eligibility to be hired as well as teaching you how to do taxes, and I was hired. I bounced from office to office as newbies do, and I was doing well enough that I was always the first to be called if a shift needed to be covered. After my first season with them went so well, I was invited back for the next year, and the class was free because of the invitation back. In case you wonder why the class is every year, it's because tax rules change every year, and we have to keep up. Shortly after the class was over, which I aced, I was approached by the lady who ran the district. She wanted to open a seasonal office in a Walmart 50 kilometers outside the city I worked in. She wanted me as the primary associate there, in part because I had done so well a previous year, in part because I had aced the class, in part because of my background in security, and in part because I lived 20 kilometers closer to this Walmart than anyone else on staff. I wasn't to be a manager, but I was going to be the only full-time associate. I'd open and close almost every day and often be the only associate on site. It was basically my baby to take care of. There were hints it might lead to an advancement in the company as well. I was pretty excited at the opportunity. At first, everything was great. The Walmart staff liked me, the customers liked me, my boss liked me. I was blasting through customers. Only maybe 5 people walked away due to having to wait out of the few hundred who approached my little office besides the produce section. 2 months in, right before the tax season really heated up, I had a weekend I'd booked off the same day they had hired me. I was going out of the province to see family. Trip had been set long before they hired me, and I'd made it quite clear I wasn't going to be around. The schedule accurately reflected that. So weekend arrives and I go. Had a good time, came home Monday evening so I could be back Tuesday morning. When I got home, I checked my answering machine for messages. There were 3 messages, 2 from my boss, the district lady, and 1 from the scheduler. I didn't remember everything word for word, so I'll paraphrase. Message 1, Saturday morning, approximately 7 a.m. Hi Vanija, sorry to do this to you, but we need you in today. Employee X, who is scheduled to replace you, their car broke down. Message 2, Saturday afternoon, about 2 p.m. I'm very disappointed in you for not responding to me and not showing up. I'll be making some changes. Message 3, Monday morning at 9 a.m. Hi Vanija, this is the scheduler. Your hours have changed this week. Call me when you get this. Now at this point in my life, I'm not a kid out of high school, and I've had enough job experience that I'm absolutely not going to crawl on my hands and knees apologizing and begging for my job. If you're going to be petty and mean just because you messed up, then we're going to have problems. And we did. I called the scheduler and was told I was suspended for a week and had to call my boss after a week to get back on the schedule. She said the boss was trying to put me in my place and teach me how to be a good manager. I'd get back on the schedule after the week was over. I brought up my pre-planned and scheduled time off and also that I wasn't a manager, I was a regular employee. The scheduler was very uncomfortable, but she was only doing what she was told. They did need me, she said. Just call the boss in a week. I said sure, and then didn't. I was furious, and I wasn't the one who was going to be put in her place. I called a few of the customers who I'd been working with and explained I was no longer working there, and they chose to keep me as their tax gal regardless. It really wasn't intended as revenge, even though it sounds that way. The company wasn't going to make more than it cost to have someone do their taxes anyway. This was purely a customer relationship thing. I like to finish what I start. The real revenge was accepting my suspension. The entire week I was suspended, I made sure to stop in at the Walmart to see if I knew who they scheduled for my shift, and if we were friendly, then help them out with the quirks of this location. But there was never anyone there. I confirmed with the Walmart staff. All week they had no one working there. Paying Walmart to rent space and getting nothing but a bad reputation for it because the heavily advertised new location had 0 employees. It remained that way for the rest of the season, 2 months. The boss never called me and I never called her. Pride. I have no idea how it impacted her professionally. I stayed far away from taxes ever since. I got another job before my suspension was over and I never looked back. They suspended you because someone else's car broke down? Definition of mess around and find out. I only wish you'd looked up her boss and told them how she shut down a profitable location because of… I don't even know how to explain it. My husband cheated on me. Do you guys think this is a one-time thing? I'm 24, female. My husband, who's 29, we've been together for 6 years. We got married 3 years ago. I thought our relationship was perfect. There was never any signs of anything being wrong. He came home on time every day and left for work on time every day. He was always affectionate and I thought our relationship was perfect. But then when he was in the shower, I saw a notification on his phone. It was from a girl on Instagram. I'd never seen her before. I opened his phone with his passcode. He had always been very open with me about his passcode and things like that. I had never checked his phone before because I didn't feel like I had to. When I opened Instagram, which I didn't even know he had downloaded, I found a bunch of messages to small influencers who posted certain types of photos. I am in no way against them, but my husband was clearly flirting with them. His account had some photos of him with some heavy filters, and his bio said that he was 25 and single. I was shocked, obviously, and just kept staring at his phone, but I couldn't stop looking. I took screenshots and sent them to myself. When my husband got out of the shower, he found me crying and on his phone. He quickly realized what had happened and started to comfort me and told me that it was just a one-time mistake. I asked if he had gone on dates or hooked up with any of these women. Then he got angry and started shouting at me that I invaded his privacy. He kicked me out of the house and I went to a friend's home. I had never seen that side of him before. In 6 years, he had always been so sweet and loving. Sometimes he'd get angry, sure, but everyone did, and I couldn't blame him for that. I know that guys have urges to cheat sometimes because it's just how they are biologically, so I don't blame him. I just wish that he had talked to me about it. My friend told me I'm being delusional and made a good point about how he hadn't apologized yet. I thought I should post here after lurking for a while and ask for some advice on what I should do because I feel so lost right now. Update. I read a lot of the comments and advice and I realized that I deserve better than him. I deserve someone that will love me for me and won't need anything else. But something about everything really bugged me. In the screenshots that I had, there was this girl. This girl was like the main person that he texted and flirted with. She was 23 and I just felt so horrible because she seemed so in love with him. I found her Instagram and I messaged her. I thought she deserved to know what happened. She was upset when she found out what was going on, so I can stop referring to her as she and I'll call her Jay. Jay was clearly upset at the whole situation and kept apologizing to me. Then she asked if she could take me out for coffee to talk about the whole situation. I agreed because I was curious. So basically, we met up the following day and I talked to her about my husband and she told me how they met and how long they had been dating. He went behind my back and dated her for 10 months. 10 months, which was just insane to me that he managed to find the time in between without me noticing. But here's the kicker. He was still texting her. I quickly learned that Jay was a very vengeful person because she told me that she wanted to lead my husband on for me. She told me that she herself had been cheated on before and was not going to let any cheater get off the hook just like that. Jay gave me a pep talk about how I'm a strong, powerful woman and we need to stick together, which was honestly really refreshing. She said she'd continue to flirt with him, etc., and try to get him to let her come over to our house. Apparently, he only met her at hotels or at her home. And then she'd get a bunch of glitter and throw it all over his stuff. Honestly, it made me laugh to think about this because my husband would be so angry. So I allowed her to do that because honestly, I don't care about any of my stuff that'll get damaged in the process. I wasn't a big spender, so I didn't have much, and I wouldn't be surprised if what I did have was already destroyed by him. Update. So at first, I was staying with my friend, who for the sake of consistency, we'll call Kay. Kay has been a huge help, and I've appreciated her so much. Jay was originally going through with the glitter plan. She updated me every step of the way, even sending me pictures of her buying the glitter. She had sent me screenshots of the text between her and my husband. It didn't even take long for her to convince my husband to let her come over, because he clearly thought that since I was gone, I wouldn't find out. Jay told me they watched a movie, and before things escalated, he went to the bathroom, in which she quickly pulled out the glitter and threw it at his side of the closet in our bedroom. She then ran, taking a few photos of the crime scene before she left. My husband was furious. It was this bright pink glitter that was sprayed all over his work clothes. I'm the one who does laundry, so he had no way of figuring out how to get it out. The funniest part is this man had the audacity to call me an hour after she left and beg me to come home, probably to clean his clothes, honestly. I wish I could show you how he sounded when I said no and that I was filing for divorce. He was so shocked and kept stumbling over his words. He never expected that I'd have the guts to do it. The months following weren't easy, and my ex-husband was not cooperating or being easy when I was trying to divorce him. He had switched between calling me mean names and crying and begging me to forgive him. J and K were my rocks and made sure I didn't forgive him. I'm so grateful for them because at some point I felt like giving up and taking him back. J especially was great because as much as I love K, she's very traditional. A little background, I guess, but I didn't have many friends, and when I got married, I had even fewer. My husband didn't like me going out much. The only friend that I had to fight to keep was K. She's my childhood best friend. Kay at first let me stay at her house, and she was shocked by my husband's betrayal, and she thought we'd eventually get back together. After seeing all the names that he called me though, she quickly switched to my side. We ended up going on a road trip together during early March because I was really struggling with my ex and I was exhausted. So we went camping together for a week with no internet connection. That was my first time camping, and it was really fun, but definitely never again. Last week, my ex-husband tried showing up at Kay's place, where I'm staying, and that was a whole issue because he knew Kay wouldn't be home when he came over. It was scary. He was pounding on the door like a crazed animal and screaming. I feel so bad for the neighbors. Luckily, Jay had been over when he showed up because she gave him a mouthful and told him that if he didn't leave, she was going to call the police. I'm so grateful for her because I was just frozen and watching this unfold. I've never been good with conflict. Update. So my ex-husband and I have been thinking about getting back together. My roommate, Jay, who is also my best friend, doesn't know, but I know that she would be totally against it. It's a long story. Jay was one of his affair partners, as I mentioned in my previous posts. But recently, my husband showed up to the apartment begging for me to take him back. It was so scary. He looked horrible. He was crying and telling me he didn't know what to do without me. He told me that his mother was sick and she was getting worse. He ended up convincing me to go on one date with him, but then I felt like I was leading him on, so I kept hanging out with him. He's nicer now. He tells me he loves me now and buys me flowers. It's starting to feel like when we first met. This has only been happening for about 2 months now and nobody knows, but he's really pushing for it to be public. I can't make it public without my best friend knowing, and she'd hate me for it. She hates my ex-husband with a burning passion. She hates him for how he hurt me and how he hurt her. She's extremely protective of me and will think he's holding me hostage or something. I really don't want to lose her, but I miss my husband. I miss being a wife. We haven't even fully gone through with the divorce yet because he's been so against it, but it seems we might not need it. Plus, she'll think it's going too fast since I plan on moving out soon too. Any advice on how I should bring this conversation up with my best friend/roommate? Bruh. I wish I had words to tell you how mad I am right now. The most disappointing update we've ever read. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my boyfriend after he gave me a crappy Christmas present? I, 28 female, broke up with my boyfriend, male 38, on Christmas Day after we exchanged gifts. I have a lot going on. I'm moving houses and I'm dealing with a new job position that has me feeling like I have a lot to catch up on from the past director. I set my alarm very early in the morning last week and took the time to buy him and his daughter, who's 16, presents that they could enjoy. To be fair, there's an income gap between us, but even a pair of affordable earrings could have made me feel happy. Because the house is a mess, I even closed off the living room with curtains so that the stack of boxes and things wouldn't make the Christmas decorations look ugly. I made sure the tree looked nice, I bought the food that he likes, and I made myself pretty for him. He arrived, and the first thing he did was make fun of my makeup. He also made fun of my Santa hat. He laughed like I'm some ridiculous cartoon. We ate and talked, and I gave him my present, AirPods. which he loved to the point of posting on Instagram. His daughter got her present, Hot Topic stuff, and I was very glad that she loved it. He took her back to her mom's house and didn't get back in an hour like he said he would. That's their Christmas arrangement. We were supposed to spend time together, but he came back about 3 hours later because his mother had visitors and he wanted to catch up. He sat watching TV and gave me zero affection. He gave me his present, which to be honest, I would have preferred not to get anything. I'm not a drinker. He got me a small wine bottle that I've seen marked at $3 to $5 at the 7-Eleven. I know I wasn't at my best because he said my face changed. He has a job. He could have gotten something actually thinking of me. I felt horrible when he said he would give me an IOU. I asked him to leave and thanked him for giving me the worst Christmas and took back my present. I cried after he left, and when he texted me asking if I was okay, I broke up with him and blocked him. His siblings have been trying to reach out to me, and I've blocked them all. One of them accused me of being materialistic and shallow, and also said that not everyone has a fancy job and that I'm unfair for expecting a certain level of gifting. Am I the jerk? You didn't break up with him because you're materialistic. You broke up with him because he showed you his disdain, contempt, dislike, disrespect, and disregard for you. And once they show it, there's no coming back from that. Am I the jerk for refusing to make my daughter issue an apology to the class clown? My daughter, Ava, who's 14, is a good kid in general. She gets good grades and is pretty quiet at school, sticking to her friend group and not causing issues. It was surprising getting a call today that I needed to pick her up since she got in trouble at school. Basically what happened was the class clown, Mia, was messing around in class, was dancing and singing during class for no reason. My daughter had enough and told her to just shut up. No one likes her and she's the reason no one enjoys school. A student recorded the whole thing. Mia ended up crying and they were both sent to the principal's office. The principal wanted my daughter to give an apology to her. I told them no and that we're leaving. This started the mom telling me her daughter needs an apology. I told her that her kid is a brat and she should learn how to behave in class. That if she wasn't annoying as she was, my daughter wouldn't have snapped after 5 months. She called me a jerk and my daughter is iffy if she should apologize, so I'm making this. Edit. This was asked. The teacher was trying to get her back to her seat. This was in the middle of a lesson. She was trying and Mia was ignoring her and kept going. Also, this wasn't a one-time thing. According to my daughter, she had 5 months of dealing with Mia and her behavior. Another question, does she have ADHD? No idea, not my kid. If she does, it does explain some things, but it doesn't excuse it. Update. So some stuff has happened since I posted this. It got out what my daughter did to the other parents, and they've all sent me email receipts of how many times they've tried to get the school to do something about Mia. Most of the parents are upset Ava had to go to the principal. The principal has sent an email about conduct in the classroom and a new policy that if kids disrupt a class, they will be taking action. Don't know what that means yet. Oh yeah, I remember that stage of school. A kid would shout something funny once and everyone would laugh, and they'd spend the rest of the school year doing increasingly cringy and annoying things to try and recapture that moment. Bruh, what school allows a kid to disrupt class for 5 months? That's affecting everyone else's education. As a high school teacher, I'll tell you that every school allows that. Schools are afraid of getting sued for inflicting emotional distress on students for doing anything. Powers have been progressively stripped from teachers to the point that if you're not paying for private school, it's a crapshoot if your kid will learn anything or just be babysat as other kids run rampant. Private school? Your parents and all the others are paying thousands to be there, so you best believe those parents are on it when anything interferes with their kids' education. Since schools don't want to lose kids and money, they deal with the problems. I assume charter schools don't have this issue, as all of the kids want to learn. I threw away the elf on the shelf and ruined a Christmas after my husband's prank. For context, this year was the first time we would try the elf on the shelf with our kids. We have 3 kids, Lucas who's 9, Andy who's 8, and Claire who's 5, where Lucas and Andy are from our past relationships. However, Miles, my husband who's 37, has accepted Andy as his, and so did I. Every Christmas is special for Andy. His birthday is on December 24th. His dad started a tradition where Santa would have consideration with him for being a kid of Christmas, so he feels magical and special. I always try to give him that. Last year, I left Santa Claus footsteps, ate a carrot, and grass that he left for Rudolph, stuff like that. My husband doesn't think it's a good idea I do all that for him, and I'm showing favoritism, so we should shut it down because of my ex's decision to create a tradition without considering my other kids' feelings. I disagree since I do consider the three of them mine, but he asked if we could do something else, like the elf on the shelf. I had no problem with it, but I didn't know how that works. He explained it to me quickly, and since he was the one who offered, I let him do it. We bought the cute elf. My kids named it Bob. Later, my husband explained to them that they should behave and never touch or hold Bob if they don't want it to be naughty. At first, it was cute to see them spy on Bob, try to see it fly each night. Andy was the most excited of all. I found him one night talking with it, asking it if Santa still remembered him. But my husband took seriously the behave or Bob would be naughty part. Lucas was his first victim after he didn't do his chores. The next day, his face was drawn on with Sharpie markers. Then Claire, who touched Bob, and her favorite onesie was destroyed. Apparently, Bob had cut some pieces of it while she was sleeping. Miles was having fun, but I could see my kids weren't. I talked to him about how we should lower the pranks. He agreed, but wanted to catch Andy since he hadn't broken any rules. I told him that Bob's supposed to tell Santa instead of being naughty. We argued, but he finally agreed. Fast forward, it's Christmas Eve, and in the afternoon, we had some of Andy's friends to celebrate his birthday. So the kids were playing in the backyard, but my husband looked sus. I decided to look for Bob. It was supposed to be in the kitchen, but it wasn't there. I asked Miles where it was, and he told me, no idea. I started getting paranoid, but Andy asked me if we could cut the cake already. I put my best face on and went for it. The cake was in a box, and when Andy opened the box, he started crying. I took a look, and it's ruined. Bob was covered in all of it, appearing as if he had been eating the cake. Half of the cake wasn't even there anymore. Miles started laughing, and so did some of the other parents. My blood is boiling, and I grab Bob and throw it in the trash. Then I grabbed Miles. We have a terrible argument. He calls me a jerk for what I did to Bob, that I've ruined it. How are we supposed to keep the magic with our kids if I wasn't supposed to touch Bob? Edit. Hi everyone. So the responses have been really overwhelming. I'm sorry it took me some time to answer. I was kind of avoiding the post. 1. Andy's dad is from Canada. He visits Andy every spring, summer, and on Christmas break. This year he stayed for his job, so he isn't an absent parent. 2. After Andy's birthday, I told Miles to get out of the house, and so he did. He spent Christmas with my in-laws. I stayed with the kids, and all of them slept in Andy's room. My kids didn't want to leave their brother alone. The next morning, we opened the gifts, and I made sure that Andy could feel special after what happened on his birthday. So I wrote a note from Bob, saying that he's sorry if he scared him and his siblings. He didn't do his job correctly, so now he would be flying to the North Pole with Santa. And when he asked if Santa still remembered him, he did. Santa was really happy to see him. 3. My kids and I are okay. We're sleeping at my parents' house, and we would celebrate New Year's Eve here too. 4. Yes, Claire was using the onesie while she was sleeping. My husband took the idea out of a TikTok. And no, Andy didn't do anything to be attacked by Bob. My wife refuses to call me her husband and will only call me her partner instead. I, 32 male, and my wife, 31 female, have been married for 5 years and we have a 2-year-old son. However, there's something that really bothers me about her. She always introduces me as her partner and not as her husband. She says the husband-wife is a role that anyone can have, but she believes that I'm her life partner more than anything else. She says she loves me more than a husband, which is sweet, but people assume that we're not even married. I understand that she has good intentions, but I don't agree with this logic. For me, husband and wife is a term that signifies commitment, loyalty, and unity. I think calling me a partner is too vague and generic, and it doesn't reflect the depth of our relationship. As I mentioned, this could cause misunderstandings with other people who think that we're not married, and one even assumed we're in an open relationship. I've talked to her about this several times, but she doesn't change her mind. She says I'm being insecure and that I should respect her choice of words. She insists it doesn't affect our love at all and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't want to argue with her over this, but I feel that she's being stubborn. Am I the jerk? Edit. I talked to my wife about an idea that one of the users suggested to her about the use of husband and partner. She found it a good middle ground for both of us and agreed to use it, on the condition that I also use wife and partner. I accepted. Thanks to everyone for the responses. You got it good. My friend's wife calls him her roommate. My mom does something similar with my dad. Some guy who walked into my apartment and still won't leave. Married for 35 years. No jerks here. I think you're both aiming for the same thing out of love. Maybe you can ask her to say, my husband and partner. But ultimately, what others think of your relationship is irrelevant to what you actually have. Their opinions should not matter. No jerks here, but consider this. Some women and people prefer the term partner because it applies equal footing in your relationship, while there have been historical discrepancies between the terms husband and wife. Bro, you literally got married in 2023 and expect her to respect you as a man. You're delusional, my guy, and you signed up for this the moment you put a ring on her. Too bad you guys already have a kid together, but good luck with the eventual divorce, alimony, and the child support you'll be paying her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. How dare you expect to be called her husband? It's almost like you think you two are married or something. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my husband to the airport and being upset that he's leaving? Background. We live on the East Coast and his family lives in Texas. My family lives about 4 hours away. They drive to us every holiday, birthday, dance recital, etc. We've lived here for roughly 7 years. Before that, we lived in Texas. His family takes several trips and vacations a year, and only once this past year came to visit us. Over the 7 years, we have went to see them at minimum 1 to 3 times per year. My husband works out of town about 3 weeks a month, so it's a lot of solo parenting for me. The weekend before Christmas, he went with his parents and siblings to Oklahoma to visit his grandparents. Myself and my kids were unable to go as my daughter had holiday things going on at home that she didn't want to miss. He came home the Monday before Christmas and asked if we could swing a trip to Texas after Christmas to see his family and so his dad and him could go to the Alamo Bowl. I told him we unfortunately couldn't. We really couldn't swing an unplanned trip financially right now, and with wanting to travel so close to the holidays, booking prices were extremely high. I also explained to him that our daughter had off of school and all sports this week, and that never happens, especially when he's home too. And I really wanted this to be a week for us all to spend together, especially since he will start traveling for work again on the 2nd of January and he will not be home until the last week of January. The day before Christmas Eve, I was out shopping and he texted me saying he knew I was going to be mad, but his dad had booked him a flight and bought tickets for himself, my husband, my brother-in-law, and my mother-in-law to all go to the game. He would return on the 30th. I got upset because we had already talked about going, and I said we just couldn't swing it this year. His response was that he knew nothing about this and his dad surprised him with it for a last-minute Christmas gift, which is a lie because they mailed our gifts to us and our kids, and he had received a Christmas gift. I asked him if everything had already been purchased as I would like him to not go. He said yes and that he was going because it's something he really wanted to do. We haven't spoken much since then, honestly, because I feel very hurt that he doesn't want to spend time with myself or our kids before a long work trip, after he's just seen his family last week and would rather spend most of the week with his parents. He says that we could just book flights for myself and our kids to go, but we honestly don't have the money, and I'm not maxing out a credit card for an unplanned trip. Tonight, he asked me if I will be driving him to the airport tomorrow morning for a 6 a.m. flight. I told him that he will need to book an Uber because I'm not waking our kids up at 3:30 a.m. to drive an hour each way to the airport so that he can go on a trip that I don't even want him going on. He says I'm being unreasonable. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This honestly sounds like a secret second family type situation with how often he's gone. Even if it's not something that extreme though, this man is a husband by contract only. You and your kids deserve so much better. He has real nerve calling you unreasonable. Not the jerk. You might as well file for divorce as you're already separated. Not the jerk. If I were you, I'd change the locks while he's gone, as he obviously doesn't want to be married. Well, what do you think? Does OP's husband have a second family and should she divorce him? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for thinking it's unfair my husband plans to give money to his daughter, who shared his parents' inheritance already? Not in the US. My husband Nate and I, both 50, have been married for 24 years, and we have twin sons who are 22. He got into a really bad car accident a couple of months ago, And though it was not seriously injured, he was shaken up. He now often talks about how his life is fleeting and we should make sure to be prepared. Nate has 2 siblings, an older brother and a sister, Tina, who's 33. Tina is actually Nate's biological daughter. He had her in high school and his parents adopted her from birth. Her mom was never in the picture. The family all knows about this, including Tina herself. Tina and my family were cordial, but not close. Nate's parents passed within a year of each other almost a decade ago. They split all they had 3 ways for their 3 kids. 5 years ago, Nate's older brother decided to join a monastery. He left behind all of his worldly possessions to Tina and my sons, though my sons mostly got things of sentimental value, while Tina got things of more monetary value. I think my in-laws were all within their right to handle their money as they saw fit. My problem is Nate. Yesterday, Nate told me he had a rough idea of how he would like his possessions taken care of. Basically, he would like to split all he has 3 ways, Tina and our 2 sons. We don't have a lot, but Nate has his parents' inheritance, and he would like to give that to all of his kids equally. I asked him how that was fair. Tina was adopted by his parents and already received her inheritance as their daughter. If his parents gave him and his brother half and half, I would understood why he felt the need to provide Tina with something. As it is, Tina already took from his share of the inheritance. Moreover, his brother also gave her money and valuables worth more than our sons received. Tina is also a dentist. She is in no way in need of financial help. Nate said at the end of the day, Tina is his biological daughter, and it is only right that he left her with something. I don't think we need to pile more money onto a capable woman with a good job who already has so much while our sons are still young and just starting their careers. Am I the jerk? No jerks here. Your husband had a brush with death and is thinking about what's important in life. You're thinking about what's important as well, and to you, that's your sons. However, you need to be realistic with your estate planning. Getting old is expensive, and with continued inflation of healthcare costs, it'll be even more expensive when you retire. You should meet with a financial planner before you and your husband talk anymore about who's getting what. You're the jerk, not your money. You have no say in how he chooses to leave it to his kids. Wicked stepmom is never an attractive look, so work on that. I think my husband and my sister are too close for comfort. 8 months ago, my sister, who's 28, moved back into town. Backstory: she has not lived here for 10 years, as she originally left for college and never came back. We grew apart, we talked maybe once a year, and I haven't seen her physically in 4 years. I, 31, female, have been with my husband, 29, male, for 8 years, married for 3. She's met him twice in the entire duration of my relationship with him. He's a quiet and serious man who only opens up in front of me and a few of his select friends. She was struggling to get a job here, so I thought I'd be a good person and ask my husband if he could maybe help her find a job at his company, since they work in the same type of field. Fast forward to current times, they actually work in the same department now. He's been acting more closed off towards me lately, but he claims everything is fine when I ask him what's wrong. We had our traditional family Christmas meal yesterday, and at first he tried to get out of it. This is not something he's ever tried to do, and I was very confused by this. After some convincing, he finally agreed to come along. My sister pulled him aside a few times, and they were in a very deep conversation, as if the rest of us didn't exist. When I approached them every time, they would both jump a little, and when I'd ask what they were talking about, they would say, "A work project that's near deadline." I was feeling a little off about their behavior, but the one thing that got me the most was at one point, he got up to go get himself another drink. She was sitting in a chair that was next to the kitchen door, so he had to pass her to go to the kitchen. When he was near her, she put her hand up and reached towards him, and he caressed her palm and lightly grabbed her fingers as he walked past her. She looked up at him with a big smile. He looked down at her and nodded his head. As soon as he was out of sight, she turned her head towards me and smirked. When it was time for dinner, there was a main dining table that seats most of the guests. There was a second table that could seat an additional 4 people. She sat down at the side table away from everyone else. I got my plate and sat down at the main table, but saw that he sat at the side table with her. I told him there was a seat next to me, and he told me he wanted to sit where he was at. I decided to join them, and they went from actively talking to each other to just sitting in silence while we ate. I later asked him what that hand touching was about, and he said, "It's just a high five." I said it didn't look like a high five, and he said that's all it was. I've never had any reason to suspect him of cheating, but this has me feeling on edge. I've been battling with myself to investigate further. Another thing is that he doesn't focus that strongly when he and I talk. It's always just short answers and lighthearted. They were having some intense conversations where he was just hanging on her every word and giving her in-depth responses. Would this make you feel like something is going on? There were several instances where they were both on their phone texting at the same time as well and glancing at each other sometimes. That could be nothing, but after everything else, it made me feel uneasy. Get a lawyer. Don't let on that you're concerned until you have reviewed your position, protected assets, etc. Yes, make sure you have a conversation and communicate with a lawyer, not your spouse or sibling. Not only to explore divorce options, but a lawyer will help you find the right way to get proof. A lawyer can recommend a reputable private investigator or some other options that are covered legally. All I have to say is be analytical about it. Remove your emotion as best you can. Don't confront him about it. Get evidence, confirm your suspicion, and seek legal counsel. If you have shared accounts, prior to dropping the bomb, take your share. Get absolutely everything in order before letting him know that you know. I'm sorry you're in this position. You'll get through it. Just be smart. Good luck, OP. Am I the jerk for insisting that my stepdaughter drive my daughter to her friend's house because her dad bought her a car? I'm 42, male. My wife, who's 39, female, had a daughter, Sophie, with her ex. She's now 17. I have an 11-year-old daughter with my late wife. My wife and I have been together for 3 years. My wife is very kind to my daughter, and they are quite close. My daughter has very little memory of her mom and has told me how nice it is to feel like she has a mom now. My wife is also happy to play that role in my daughter's life. I'm not as close to Sophie because she's older and she spends 2 weeks a month at her dad's place, but she's polite to me and I think she's wonderful. Sophie's dad is pretty well off, my wife and I less so. He was the main earner before my wife left him. My wife and I both work full-time, but we have to be careful with our finances right now. We got my daughter a few books and Sophie a dress for Christmas. Both of them liked their presents. Sophie's dad got Sophie a brand new car. We have only one car in the family right now. I drop my wife off on the way to work in the mornings, so it works out. But it does mean that I couldn't take my daughter or Sophie anywhere during the holidays, as my wife still has to work. I have the week off because I'm a teacher. She did have a few days off though. Now that Sophie has the car, she's planning to go to her friend's New Year's party. My daughter asked if Sophie could drop her off at her friend's house too, and Sophie said it's too far out of the way, extra half an hour approximately, and it's her car, so my daughter can wait until she's old enough to drive. I thought that was uncalled for, so I said Sophie was being rude and she should drop my daughter off. She said it's not her fault I can't afford another car for us. My wife said I should just let it go, because my daughter has a dad all the time and Sophie only has one half the time, and the car is a fair compensation for that. My daughter and Sophie are both upset now. Am I the jerk? Edit. I suppose you're right. It is her car. She can do what she wants with it. I just thought it wouldn't hurt her to think of others this time. My daughter asked very politely, and Sophie often has much nicer things than my daughter, and I've never asked her to share or anything. And I pay for all of her gas while she lives with us. Edit again. 30 minutes extra means 15 minutes out of the way, 30 minutes total. An hour is a lot of extra driving, I agree. To the people who said, ask nicely, my daughter asked very nicely, and Sophie literally said, I don't have to do anything for you. That's why I said she was being rude. I'm not forcing her, I just said that I think she should. To the person who asked if I broke up their family, Sophie's dad cheated on my wife twice, so maybe think before you speak. I might be wrong here, but there's no reason to overreact. You're the jerk. The car doesn't come with conditions. You have just driven a big wedge into your blended family. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Don't make your daughter your stepdaughter's problem. You're the jerk. If Sophie's reasoning is that it was too far away, it sounds like she wouldn't be comfortable with the extra 30 minutes on the road alone. It's not responsible to put a new driver in a position they're not comfortable with, especially on New Year's Eve when there's a greater risk of unsafe driving going on. She's also not obligated to use the gift her dad got her for your benefit. It was fine to ask her to drive, but you needed to accept her answer. Calling her rude wasn't appropriate. Bruh, I'm so done with y'all today. Y'all are just mean. I don't like you people. Am I the jerk for not letting my old mother-in-law stay with us over Christmas, even though she lives alone? I'm 41. My husband is 47. We have a 5-year-old daughter. My husband's mom is 72. She has some mobility issues, but overall she's fine health-wise. She lives alone. Her husband passed away quite suddenly last year. We live about 2 hours away from her by car, so my husband visits her sometimes on weekends, but not that often. I've never had a good relationship with her. She made some insensitive comments when I miscarried and has always said that my job isn't a real job and I should pull my weight in the family. I teach music lessons online. I don't earn as much as my husband, who works a regular corporate job, but I do make a good chunk of the family income, so it's not just a hobby. I'm also home with my daughter, which is a lot of work too. Anyways, when my father-in-law passed, my mother-in-law took it pretty hard. I suppose it sunk in that she wasn't as independent as she was in the past. She asked if she could move in with us, but I didn't want her to, because it would honestly just be miserable to have her around all day. My husband wasn't really happy, but he told her if she gets older and needs help, she can move in with us. For Thanksgiving this year, we went to my parents' house, and she was upset about it, so she called during dinner, and she was crying that she was alone. Later, I said that she did that just to mess up our evening, and my husband said I was being cold and heartless. She asked if she could stay with us for Christmas and New Year's, and I told my husband that she was absolutely not coming over. He got really angry, and we both said some thoughtless things. He thinks I'm just holding grudges and being cruel to leave an old lady alone during the holidays, and his mother on top of that. We were both just pretending everything was fine on Christmas so our daughter would enjoy it like usual. I don't know if I'm the problem. Edit. We did visit her on Christmas Eve and will visit again for New Year's. I just didn't want her to stay with us for the whole 2 weeks. Edit 2. It's not the first holiday season since her husband passed. Last year, she was with us for a few months after he passed, during the holidays as well. She insisted I cook every meal for her separately, since my daughter doesn't like spicy food. We have gotten used to eating more mildly spiced food, and she didn't like that. Once she left, we went to the beach for the weekend, and she called saying she was very sick. We headed home straight away, and it turns out she wasn't sick at all. I know I'm being selfish, but I just don't want to deal with it again. Edit 3. My husband is not an only child. His brother lives in Australia though, which is kind of an issue. We're in the US. He says he will help pay if she needs to go to a nursing home later though. Not the jerk. Your mother-in-law sounds horrible. I kind of grew up in a situation like this. My grandma was just like your mother-in-law. She has a track record of being rude and demanding of you. You have examples. She wants to be waited on for 2 weeks. Not the jerk. Your husband can quit being heartless and wake up. His mother has been deeply unkind to his wife for years, and a natural consequence of that is that she is not welcome for extended visits. Am I the jerk for refusing my son's Christmas gift? I, 40s male, live with my wife, 40s female, and our youngest kid who's 18 male. Times have been tight for us the last few months. Our bills are paid, but we have essentially no discretionary income, and that means that Christmas presents were pretty much off the table. This is the first Christmas where this has been the case, and my wife and I have been pretty sad. Our son is aware of this, and being an empathetic kid, was accepting of the situation. He's also lucky in that I have a few wealthy relatives that give him money for Christmas every year. So Christmas morning comes around, and our son comes in and gives us each a card. We smile and open them, and in each card is $100. It almost brought me to tears. He used his own Christmas money to give us a gift, even though we couldn't afford to give him anything. Here's where I'm torn. I got up, gave him a hug, thanked him, and then gave the money back. I told him that he will never have to give us money. My personal feeling is that gifts of money go down generations, or sideways, but never up. I absolutely do not want either of my kids giving me money, and I would never ask. It just seems wrong to me. He seemed a bit disappointed. I took the cards and put them up on the mantle over the fireplace and made a big deal over how much we liked them, but I refused the money. Told him to keep it and buy himself something nice with it. Am I the jerk for refusing the gift? Edit. Many have suggested that I let him treat us all to a nice dinner. I've just spoken to him, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you so much for your feedback and kind words. I especially appreciate the You're the Jerk votes that included positive feedback and advice. I hope everyone has a happy new year. No jerks here. What a lovely, thoughtful son you've raised. Kudos to you and your wife. Maybe you could have taken the money and done something for the three of you so your son didn't feel disappointed. In the emotion of the moment, though, I can understand why that didn't occur as a compromise. My daughter refuses to get a job because it will hurt her social life at school. So my daughter, Sophia, she's 16 and she goes to a private school that a lot of the richer families send their kids to. My wife works there, so we get a huge discount on the price. I would prefer to send the kids to public school, but our school district really sucks, so private school it is. I truly don't like how the kids act at that school. They're really snobby, to be honest. My breaking point for this was when my son sent me a video of my daughter being extremely rude to a fast food worker. My wife and I discussed it, and we agreed that she needed to get a job so she could understand that these people deserve respect and how awful it feels for a customer to be a jerk. So she's been working at Target and dealing with all of the customers. She hates it, and word got around school that she has a job now. This resulted in people not inviting her out like they used to, since they think having a job is lame. My wife wants to let her quit her job, and we got in an argument about it. I think it's better she learns that they were never her friends in the first place, and she should keep her job. My wife thinks I'm an unfair jerk, and Sophia hates me at the moment. Am I the jerk for this? Not the jerk, but as a former food service worker in high school, I believe that everyone should work at least one full year, so you hit all the holidays at least once, as a food service or frontline store worker, so that they're likely to think twice before mistreating staff after that. Maybe do something similar. She has to work for one full year, including full-time over the summer. OP. I agree with that. I remember getting yelled at the movie theater when I was a teenager. I've never been mean to employees since. I know those jobs suck, and I don't want it to be hard on her. Walking in the service worker's shoes is a great way to learn empathy and how your actions affect others that are working. Not the jerk. While it sucks that your daughter isn't going to as many parties, I think you're correct in that they were never her friends if they think it's lame for a 16-year-old to get a job. Stick to your guns. Your daughter needs to learn that while working isn't always fun, it's important. Unlike her so-called friends, she doesn't have rich parents to bankroll her life. Earning and saving now will teach very important lessons that go beyond showing empathy to working people. You're the jerk. She got the job and hated it. The lesson that the people she was mistreating are people too might be able to ring home. If it has negative consequences for her friend group, that might not be what you want. Am I the jerk for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? So a little backstory. When my sisters and I were kids, every year for our birthdays and Christmas, my uncle would give us cards. Inside those cards would be a printed out picture of some place, like a local theme park, the zoo, aquarium, museums, any place a kid would love to go. After we opened them, he would tell us that we're going to that place. He would say things like, "It's gonna be the best trip of your life." That would obviously make us very excited. Here's the thing, we never went on any of those trips. We never went to any of those places. As a young kid, it would be disappointing, but after a while, I started expecting it and just went along with it. I don't hold any animosity towards him at all, obviously. As an adult now, I understand he did that because he didn't have the means to buy us gifts. Here's where I'm starting to have a little bit of an issue with it. My daughter's 5th birthday was last week. My uncle gave her a card. She opened it to find a printed out picture of a theme park about 2 hours away from our house, and he promised her a fun weekend away. He promised her things like a giant hotel room with a swimming pool, all the snacks she could ever want, and tickets to every show she wants to see at the park. She was over the moon. For the past week, my daughter has talked nonstop about this trip. She keeps telling me how excited she is and how excited her whole class is at school for her. It breaks my heart to look at that smile on her face knowing it's not going to happen. I remember how disappointing it was for me, and I don't want her to go through that. So I texted my uncle. Here's the message that I said. "Hi, your message in my daughter's card was so beautiful. Do you think next time you could leave out the promise of an extravagant trip? The thought and gesture is amazing. However, I never know what to say when she asks me when the trip will be. She absolutely loves spending time with you, so I know the promise of even a nice lunch together would make her so happy." He never responded, but my aunt told me he was upset. She said something like he was offended that I implied the only thing he could afford was a nice lunch. I didn't mean it like that at all. I just wanted him to understand that she loves him and wants to spend time with him, and he doesn't need to promise impossible things to make that happen. But I can see why he interpreted it the way he did, and that's where I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. This has been an unspoken thing in my family for so many years, so I'm now wondering if I should have just kept it that way. I just can't stand the thought of her getting disappointed so many times. My sisters and my mom agree with me. My mom even said she wished that she stopped it when we were kids. So, am I the jerk for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? Update. A lot of people asked me why I was being so nice to my uncle. And honestly, I think I underestimated how weird it was because it's been so normalized in my family. I didn't want to start drama, so I went about it as non-confrontational as possible. I agree now that I should have been more direct. Another concern a lot of you have is that I allowed this to happen previously. That's not true. This is the first time he promised her one of these trips. That's why I decided to say something, so this doesn't become a recurring thing. Update. I tried to call my uncle twice, but he didn't answer. I got through to my aunt and explained everything to her. How many times he promised my siblings and I the same thing and we were disappointed. I told her how my daughter was so excited and that if they were actually planning to take her on this trip, I would apologize. She didn't take that well. She told me I was creating unnecessary drama and that my daughter and I are acting entitled to expect them to drop everything to go on this trip. I was shocked and angry. I said, "How dare you say that? She didn't imagine this trip in her mind and then expect you to take her. You promised her this trip. Her disappointment is not entitlement." I said it's not my job to make sure a grown man feels secure in himself, and it's a shame my family spent so long coddling him. I was so mad, I just hung up. I don't feel any ounce of guilt for setting my boundary anymore. For everyone asking if I can take my daughter on the trip, unfortunately that theme park closes for the season this month. But I surprised her with something even better. After the phone call with my aunt, my partner and I decided to book a trip to Disneyland. It sounds crazy and impulsive, but we've been wanting to plan this for a while now and decided it's the perfect time. My kid is entitled to an extravagant trip. Last night, we sat her down and explained that her uncle won't be able to take her on the trip. I tried to be as honest as possible without confusing her. She was unsurprisingly upset and had a lot of questions. After we answered them all, I told her not to worry because her mom and I are taking her somewhere else instead. When she found out it was Disney, she was over the moon. She spent all day deciding which Minnie Mouse stuffy she wants to take with her. I told her to tell her class that her trip got upgraded. All things considered, it's a happy ending. I know I won't always be able to protect her from disappointment, but I sure as heck will do my best. She's getting that giant hotel room she was promised. I wouldn't be accepting any more cards from them at all. OP, don't worry, I'm not. I'm going to be checking cards of any events he comes to. It's a shame I even have to do that, but if it means protecting her from his lies, I'll do it. This family dynamic is just wild. Why has everyone just accepted it? OP, I wish I had a good answer to your question. I have a theory though. My uncle is the boy in the family, and my grandma has always treated him differently than she treats her daughters. You know, the typical self-proclaimed boy mom stuff. She thinks he's perfect, so I'm starting to believe everyone let him get away with this because they didn't want to upset my grandma. I'm sure she's upset with me for hurting her son's feelings. My wife refuses to put our son, who's 6, in public school. How do I move forward? My son is 6 years old, but he's very smart and we're currently homeschooling him. But currently they haven't had a session in weeks. When they do, it's just a few hours, if that. 3 times a week, if that. I'm very frustrated because even though I understand the advantage of homeschooling, more focus on subjects that matter without the fluff, not subjecting him to the dangers of public school, I'd still rather have him endure that than him on his phone constantly throughout the day and not obtaining any social skills of any kind. The wife and I have argued about this so many times, and I told her it's the last year of this homeschooling. She has clinical OCD and babies him a lot. It's her only child, so I understand to an extent. I have 3 others from a previous marriage and 2 live with us, so I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. I'm not sure if counseling, compromise, or ultimatums are in order here, as she absolutely refuses to put him in school, and I've threatened divorce because I find it very harmful for him. Any advice would help. Edit. This is a difficult decision to say the least. To those who had lingering questions, I work from home, so that's how I know. Yes, she gets therapy and medication for her OCD. Yes, I know I'm at fault for not just enrolling him in school behind her back, but this is something I've argued for the last 2 years about. I take his education seriously, but you don't just do what you feel is right without consulting your partner. So I decided to write down my feelings and will give her a choice. I love her and my son. I feel we can make a decision that's beneficial to all, but if she wants to be stubborn, I'm willing to walk away, which is a very hard decision with lots of ramifications. She's gonna wreck him if she's allowed to homeschool him the whole time. If your wife's OCD is driving this issue, it is in your kid's best interest to attend school. Not subjecting him to the dangers of public school, that sounds like an OCD worry. Has her fear impacted the whole family? She desperately needs professional therapy if she isn't already. Her catastrophic thinking is very harmful to your son's own psyche. Her therapist must be aware of how her illness is affecting him. Your wife is neglecting his education. Her mental health issues are deeply affecting her insight and her parenting. I don't know if my story will help your case at all, but my mom tried to do the same with me. I was homeschooled, aka I was at home instead of going to public school. Luckily, I got some formal education for 3 years, so I at least know how to read. My homeschooling was really just getting to sit around and read or play on my phone. She never pushed me to do anything. No math, no science, no history, nothing I didn't want to do. Eventually, my grandparents visited, saw that I was basically a 13-year-old third grader, and they called the authorities. I was taken to live with my grandparents, then eventually my dad. Got to go to high school, but I was bullied horribly for my lack of social skills. I'm in college now, but it took 3 extra years of remedial education to get to basic freshman level. I'm in my mid-20s and I still can't socialize, still can't do division. I encounter huge gaps in my knowledge daily. I literally can only read and write so well because all I did for school was read. Oh, and I also do not speak to my mom, and I called the authorities the second I caught wind of her doing the same thing to my siblings. Update. So after many heated arguments, we agreed that she could finish out this year. If she stays consistent and there is an improvement, I agreed that he will stay homeschooled. But if I don't, then he will go to public school. I'm still afraid she may renege on the deal, and she's afraid I may not give her a fair shot and just disagree no matter what when the time comes. But that's where the trust in your partner is really tested. Now, this took a lot of conviction and tears and emotions. This was not easy to get to because of how strongly we felt about her homeschooling in the public school system. So I suppose any argument about the welfare of our kids is better than petty ones. In the end, I was close to really walking away, but I listened to her feelings and she understood mine. I hope this helps someone in a similar situation. Thanks for all the feedback. Edit. So let me explain. I have a calendar of his lessons and times she will be teaching him. Those will be signed off and checked. I will also have him tested at the end. She has until the end of December this year. If she fails, he'll be enrolled come January of 2024. Also, the nasty comments that we are failing him, that I'm a terrible parent and spineless, not needed. I was and am willing to divorce unless I have my son succeed. I'm sure you all meant it as motivation, I'm guessing. I'm here to fight for my son, but also in a marriage, and you don't just throw away your marriage unless there's no other choice. So if she reneges on the deal, she knows the consequences. I just don't get homeschooling. It seems more of like an excuse to keep kids from external influences than it does about actually educating them. Not to mention, I have a very hard time believing that most parents are even remotely qualified to properly educate their kids. Well, what do you think? Should they keep homeschooling him or not? Please let us know. As someone who was homeschooled for a few years myself, I wish I had never been. I really missed out on some important years of social development. Oh, is that why you're so awkward to be around, Karen? Silence, you fool! Am I the jerk for laughing at the reason my son was given detention and not agreeing to it? I, 36 female, have a son who's 11, in 6th grade, and we'll call him Preston, and the teacher we'll call Susan. She's about 50-something. Some important background is that Preston is pretty skittish and jumpy. He easily gets startled by noises or voices that he doesn't expect, especially if they're loud. I only have seen Susan in person like twice, but she has a distinctly loud, almost thunderous voice. Never heard her yell though, but Preston says it always makes him jump a little, and apparently she's known for being ridiculously loud in general from the other kids and parents. Anyway, I work from home, and I got a voicemail on my phone from Preston using a school phone saying he got detention. Because Susan yelled at some kids that were messing around during work time, he was startled and she noticed, so she made him leave the room, work in the hallway, and call me to tell me that he had disturbed detention next week. I did not believe that was the reason he got detention at all, because that sounds really dumb, and assumed he was just minimizing his role. He does tend to do that when explaining his side when in trouble, so I thought I'd get Susan's side at recess while I went to lunch. I call her, and I was completely caught off guard when what she said lined up with everything Preston said. I wasn't sure what to say at first, but I ended up just laughing on the phone before any words could come out. Susan was irritated and asked what was so funny, and I just responded that I was so sure that Preston was lying to me because that was such a ridiculous reason to give anyone detention, and that he's not serving detention just for being startled. She tells me that this is not a suggestion and that I'm being obtuse. I stood firm and asked her if she'd think it was appropriate if her boss yelled loudly at some fellow teachers You were startled, and then he proceeded to dock her pay or some other form of punishment, following up with, I bet she didn't even do jack squat to the kid she was initially yelling at after noticing Preston. She got quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I convinced her, but then she doubled down and said that failing to serve detention would result in suspension or more, and I told her I'd gladly fight her and the school on this if it came to that before hanging up. I do not intend to punish Preston just for getting startled. We all do it, and it's nothing worth making any issue out of. If I'm being honest, the only reason I posted this is because I vented to my friend about this later, and she actually did not side with me, saying that I was kind of a jerk to laugh at Susan and that teachers don't get paid enough to deal with the things I said. So I want to hear what unbiased people think. I startle easily. If I got in trouble every time I had a reflex response from a loud noise in the classroom, I would have been expelled several times over. That's easily the stupidest thing I've ever heard someone put in detention for. Not the jerk. Talk to the principal about this ASAP and object. I'd be curious if Susan has actually explained what happened yet to those above her. If they have any common sense, they'd see how ridiculous it is. Also, maybe to avoid any retaliation, see if he could change rooms and get a different teacher. This might be US defaultism talking, but I'd say it's pretty early in the school year to do a switch for the good of your son, so this teacher does not pull any more weird power trips like this one. Not the jerk. I work in education too. I understand not getting paid enough, and I've seen some entitled parents, but you don't sound entitled. This is a pretty ridiculous reason to punish someone. Some people get startled easily. I'm one of those people. That's not a reason to punish someone. Definitely talk with the principals about this. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that "this needs to soak" translates to "I'm too lazy to wash this"? Just like the title says, last night, my 52 female daughter, who's 30, and baby granddaughter were over here, and I made oven-baked macaroni and cheese. We took up our plates, and I put the leftovers in a container and immediately filled the pan with hot soapy water, and we sat down to eat. After dinner, we had coffee, and then my daughter went to wash the dishes before heading home. When she got to the pan, she said, "Oh, this still needs to soak." I told her that translates to "I'm too lazy to wash that," and I reminded her that it had already been soaking for over an hour and that it wasn't going to get any easier to clean. She said I was just being a jerk and I should just be happy that she had done the dishes in the first place. So, am I the jerk? Edit. My daughter comes home 3 to 4 times a week for dinner. I know it helps save her money on groceries, so I don't have any problem with that, and she always insisted that she does the dishes because I cook the dinner. Second edit. My granddaughter is almost 2, and my daughter is a first-time mom who's co-parenting. For those who are saying that she's a guest, I assure you that she's not. She has a key to the front door, comes and goes as she pleases, still has a room here. Now it has a toddler bed, as they often spend the night. The pan in question is a glass Pyrex. The cheese wasn't burnt on it, and as I said, it was full of hot soapy water already and had been for a while. Final edit. When I got up this morning and saw all the "you're the jerk" votes, I went to visit my daughter. I apologized to her for calling her lazy, and I showed her this post. She read everything over and said to me, "But Mom, you didn't call me lazy. You said leaving the pan to soak was lazy, and you were right. I just didn't want to wash it, and I got snippy when you called me out for it." She then apologized to me as well and asked if she could come over for dinner tonight. I have a pork shoulder in my crock pot right now. Like most mothers and daughters, we don't always see eye to eye, but we do try to resolve our differences. Soaking overnight absolutely helps. Stuff that would have to be viciously scrubbed off slides off easily. It's just one pan, one time. You're the jerk. She did almost all of the dishes in a house she doesn't live in, and you call her lazy. You're the jerk. I live with people who do this. The key is that when they say "this needs to soak," they are never ever around when it's done soaking and it's time to wash. Coincidentally, that's always my job. I agree that "this needs to soak" for some folks actually means you wash it because it's really messy and I don't want to. That said, and I really truly feel your pain, as I look at these dishes my spouse said to soak last night, still in the sink waiting for me to clean, you will never make points with someone by assassinating their character. Hey, it's as soaked as it needs to be. Would you mind washing? Fine. You're lazy? Well, it didn't really end up changing the dish situation. And your daughter called you a rude name, so just judging by results, not an optimal strategy. Unfortunately, I've got to go with "you're the jerk" for the name calling, but I'm mighty tempted to join you in the club. You're the jerk. No, it needs to soak. And who makes company wash the dishes? That would be a one visit and done for me. Well, what do you think? Is it okay to leave those dishes soaking overnight for someone else to wash or not? Please let us know. I had an ex who always did that. Long story short, we're totally not together anymore. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my friend's furniture after she lied about the amount she needs? I, female 34, have been close friends with Eva, 36, since college days. I and Eva have also been close friends with Julia, who's 33. However, me and Julia had a big falling out about 5 years ago. We come from small Eastern European conservative country. I've moved away soon after college, but both girls are still home and still close friends. During lockdown, Eva started dating a guy, David. As their relationship progressed, and the more she told me about the guy, the less I liked him. When she told me they got engaged, I tried to talk to her about my concerns, but she didn't want to listen. Earlier this year, Eva told me they would get married this fall and asked me to be her maid of honor. I was torn between supporting my friend and refusing on grounds I just don't think he's right for her. In the end, I said yes to being her maid of honor. In our culture, it's custom that best man and maid of honor gift the newlyweds the biggest and most expensive gift, and the rest of the guests use it as a guide what not to exceed. I own my company and earn substantial income, so I asked her what she needs and wants. She said it would mean a lot if I could help her furnish their new apartment, that their mortgage doesn't leave any room for furniture. I said fine, send me the list and links of what you want, and offered to either buy it for her or give her a check that would cover everything on the list. She sent me the list. It was a lot, but still nothing I couldn't easily afford. About 2 months ago, she called me to say she would have 2 ceremonies, civil ceremony this fall and church wedding next year, but that she wants Julia to be her maid of honor for church ceremony and me for civil. I wasn't okay with this and said she would need to choose. Since I committed to buying her furniture, I even offered to keep that promise if she chooses Julia. She did. It stung a bit, but I reminded myself I was never really for that marriage. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago when Eve calls asking for checks for furniture. I asked her to remind me what the amount was. I knew the rough figure, but not down to a final euro. She rattled an amount that was almost 3 times what I had in my head. After going back through emails, I was right, and she almost tripled the original number. After confronting her the first time, she tried to blame it on inflation, but then said that it shouldn't matter because I can afford it and it's my wedding gift to her. I proceed to rescind my offer to pay for furniture and said I would prefer to stick to our custom and make sure my gift doesn't overshadow that of maid of honor. She called me a jerk for going back on my promise. So, am I the jerk for refusing to honor the original offer? Not the jerk. It's one thing to change your mind and keep the people close to you when on the loop. However, in this case, you were lied to and your financial status was used as a "but you can afford it so it doesn't matter" crutch. If your friend wanted more money towards the furniture or other things and she asked you in advance, I'm assuming you would have fulfilled her wishes. People like this really hurt my heart because it doesn't matter how long you have known the other person. That first lie is never the last lie. My sister demands to be paid for the labor she did for us on Christmas. My husband, who's 36, and I, 38 female, hosted Christmas this year at our house. My 20 living close family members, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, have stayed with us from the 18th and will continue until tomorrow. A further 8 people joined us yesterday for Christmas dinner and a Christmas party. My older brother, who's 40, and his husband, who's 53, usually help me out with the Christmas dinner, and they did this year as well, but there were a few more guests than usual and we needed more hands on deck, so I asked my younger sister, who's 30, if she would help. She agreed, if reluctantly, once she saw how much needed to be done and we all got to work. She muttered when she started that I had better pay her back for this, to which I laughed because I thought it was a joke. There's a very high chance that I misinterpreted this because I do have autism and recognizing sarcasm is not one of my strong points. But she didn't object, so I took my interpretation as the correct one. I was and am incredibly grateful for her help, and I thanked her for it many times. Once the cooking was done and the food was served in our dining room, I made sure to mention the contributions that everyone had made to the meal, by name, as I do every year. My sister then, this morning, just before she was about to leave, everything's packed up in her car, saying goodbye to everyone, asked me how much I was going to pay her. I asked her what she meant, and she said that she had agreed to do it with the idea that she would be paid for it, and she wasn't my slave. I said I wasn't going to pay her because it was a favor. Also, I've done a lot for her during her time here, so if anything, it was her paying me back. She just glared at me and asked again for her money, and I said I don't have anything for her. She didn't ask again and left after telling me that I was a jerk for no reason. We're normally on very good terms, so this was surprising. I don't remember us ever arguing before now, so I think I either did something very wrong or she was in a bad mood because she was hungover and I only did something slightly wrong. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. People do help out in other ways, which is why I went to my sister because she was the only one who wasn't busy. Not the jerk. I don't even understand this concept. At Christmas, everyone helps out so that everyone can enjoy themselves. The payment is the finished meal that I'm sure your sister partook in. I can't imagine a majority of the adults in my family just sitting around not helping. Everyone is just in and out of the kitchen, cooking, tidying up, looking after the younger kids. Regardless of who's hosting, we all help out. Even me, who's disabled and physically can't help much, I can still do other things that are helpful, like keeping the kids entertained with crayons and paper, or holding a baby so the parents can do things in peace. And I bring stuff that I prepared beforehand. If someone demanded to be paid, I'd laugh too. Then we'd probably point out that everyone helps out and everyone has pitched in buying food. Why should one person get paid for doing what all of us have done to have a nice Christmas together? Ex-mother-in-law is requesting a crazy amount of grandparent visitation. How do I move forward? My ex-mother-in-law has taken me to court for grandparent visitation. Background. My ex was incarcerated October 22nd, and since then, I have allowed visitation around 1 to 2 times a month, including his side of the family in their school activities and extracurriculars, and sent pictures and updates. I also set boundaries at this time. No involving the kids in his case or discussing his case with them. No taking them to visit him, etc. Grandma decided to break some of those boundaries, so I started to limit when and where she could visit. Anyways, all that was going good enough, so Grandma requested every other weekend, Dad's schedule, holidays, vacation time, and daily phone calls. We went to court, and the judge pretty much said it's not Grandma's job to step into Dad's shoes, and it looks like Mom, me, was already allowing visitation, so they're going to have an uphill battle in her courtroom. Judge requested we go to mediation, then we would return to court later this year. Now their attorney has sent me a letter asking for Grandma to have every Sunday from 9 to 5. I don't agree with any weekend visitation time because she's trying to take the kids to visit Dad, and I'm concerned about her communication with the kids. Talking bad about me, asking them to delete messages and not show them to me, putting them in the middle of conflict. My oldest told me that they are no longer answering her calls because they're tired of Grandma putting them in the middle of this. I was previously offering visits during the week, dinner dates, going to the mall, etc., but she was declining my offers. At this point, I don't feel comfortable offering any visits until there is a court order and stipulations around communication, prison visitation, etc. But do I need to respond to their attorney? Also, my plan is to try and be fair here, but also protect my kids. Offer limited monthly visitation, 1 to 2 dinners a month, no overnights, plus some holiday time. Offer to update them on events and extend invite to school activities, put boundaries around communication, no visiting the prison, no putting them in the middle of conflict, and I would like to keep my parental decision-making rights that if Grandma or her family continue to break these stipulations, that I can cease at any time without filing a modification. Does this seem fair, considering the circumstances? I can't find any information on what a grandparent visitation schedule would look like. Or do I ask the judge to throw this out completely because I was previously offering visits and Grandma is clearly a toxic nutcase? Keep offering the weekday visits. Offer dinners with you and the kids, park visits, etc. Save all texts and declinings of the visits. Then you can say, over this time, I offered this amount of visiting opportunities, but she declined them. It will go a long way. Have your kids screenshot all of those messages and send them to you. Add a passcode to their phone so Grandma can't delete them. If Grandma says mean things, have your daughter write it down, in her own words. They may or may not consider it, but if you present this in parental alienation light, they probably will. You can also contact the prison and the state that if she arrives for a visit with the kids, she is to be denied because she did not get permission to bring them from their legal guardian, and your kids are not allowed to enter the facility. Update. We went to mediation and did not agree. Grandma went from asking for every other weekend to asking for every Sunday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and says that if that's too early, she would pick up the kids Saturday so they could just spend the night. Of course, I said that's not going to happen. I received a letter from their attorney telling me to bring my kids to court because the mediator communicated to him that they could interview the kids. I ignored the request. I submitted a supplemental declaration with exhibits about my concerns with Grandma's behaviors. Grandma submitted a response full-on bashing me, including false accusations. Honestly floored their attorney let that get sent out. When we went back to court, the attorney came up to me in the hallway to explain how court orders work. Told me that a standard order includes language about no derogatory comments about the other party. Yes, I know. He asked me to send the kids to Grandma's for Thanksgiving. I said no. They saw them last year for Thanksgiving, and even in custody orders between parents, one parent typically does not get every holiday every year. Then he threatened me with counsel, and the judge would order my kids to come to court. Spoiler, she denied his request. Anyways, the judge seemed very much on my side and did not agree with Grandma's behavior. Agreed with my boundaries I set from the beginning and was pleased that one of them included for them to also not talk bad about the kid's father. Overall, I've been reasonable. Judge commented that she feels most of this could be resolved if the petitioner would have reasonable expectations and request for visitation. Well, their attorney asks for an evidentiary hearing. Judge looked annoyed, but from what I understand, if you request it, you pretty much get it unless the court can find good cause to deny the request. Your mother-in-law has lost perspective on reality and her attorney is making bank by trying to draw things out in court. By the time this case is done, one grandkid will be 16 and the other will be 11. That's old enough for a significant contribution of the evidence to come from them. It's not going to be found in mother-in-law's favor and will most likely have the opposite effect of having the kids immensely dislike her. Am I the jerk for kicking my son and his girlfriend out? I, 55 female, have two kids, George, who's 31, and Gabrielle, who's 29. Gabrielle recently got engaged, and I'm helping her plan the wedding in my spare time, which the entire family is very excited for, except George. George recently divorced his wife of 7 years, Susanna, 28 female, after he said the spark had died and gone out. They have a set of twins together, Amy and Alice, who are 6, and are trying to set up a healthy co-parenting relationship. Susanna is a great mother to my grandkids, and I was disappointed in George for giving up so fast on their relationship without even trying couples counseling. But it wasn't my business or place to say anything. The drama started when George brought his new girlfriend to dinner at my house. He met his girlfriend, Bethany, who's 25, through a work colleague, and they've been dating for 4 months now. At dinner, Gabrielle and I were discussing flower arrangements, and Bethany felt the need to ask George if he'd ever marry again. George coughed before replying that he'd have to think about it, which Bethany seemed to deflate at. Well, this caused Alice to cry about how she wants Mommy and Daddy to love each other again. George and Bethany just sat there while my granddaughter screamed. After I comforted Alice, I pulled George aside and asked if he was sure about Bethany, which he told me was none of my business. I told him it was my business who he invited into my home and my grandkids' lives, since I've been caring for them in my spare time while he works. He and Susanna have 50-50 custody. George got angry and said it was Gabrielle's fault for mentioning weddings in the first place. I told him to stop acting like a kid and to be happy for his sister. Then Bethany felt the need to insert herself and tell me that she and George were together, no matter how much I liked his ex-wife. After that, I was done with the conversation, and I asked them both to leave. George and Bethany stormed off and left my grandkids at my house at 7 p.m. I had to call Susanna to come get her kids since they had school in the morning, and I was attending a cake tasting with Gabrielle the next day. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell my 31-year-old son to be happy for his sister or argue with a random woman whom I have never met before in my own home. So, am I the jerk? George needs to pay for daycare for a while. OP. The truth is, George can't afford daycare with the child support and alimony he owes Susanna. I agreed to babysit my grandkids as a favor to him. I love my grandkids, but I wish George would appreciate the thousands of dollars I'm saving him each month. Maybe they need to rethink the custody agreement if he can't care for them. OP. If Susanna took on more custody, then George would owe her for more child support, which he's already struggling to afford. Plus, it would mean that Susanna would have to work part-time hours, which isn't really an option in her industry. Alice needs counseling. OP, my husband and I have suggested that George pay for her to get some counseling, but he keeps saying that he needs to save and he can't afford it. What exactly were you asking when you asked if he was sure about Bethany? I was asking if it was really the right time to introduce her to the family, since his daughters are still sensitive about the divorce and are trying to come to terms with it. I didn't ask him in the context of, is Bethany right for you? I meant it as in, are you sure this is the right time to introduce her? I didn't inherently dislike Bethany, but maybe it would have been better to introduce her to my grandkids after they've recovered from the divorce. Did George ask if he could bring Bethany beforehand? OP, George asked me if Bethany could come 20 minutes before he was supposed to arrive, so it's not like I could say no at that point. Update. Bethany came to my house to apologize for how she acted at dinner last week. She told me that she was 2 months pregnant and George had broken up with her after she told him, because he has too much responsibility and didn't want to be in the baby's life. I then spent the better part of 3 hours talking with Bethany about the baby and what she wants. She says she wants to keep the baby even if George refuses to be in their life, and I told her that I would help with childcare if she needs it since she doesn't have any family that live nearby. Before I got angry with George, I thought I would call him and give him a chance to explain. George was angry that Bethany had shown up at his house and insisted that it wasn't his baby. I told him that he should get a paternity test, and he asked me for $500 to cover it since he's struggling. I told George that he needs to figure it out himself since he's about to be a father of 3 and that he better step up and do right by his kids. George then hung up. Well, 2 hours later, I get a call from Susanna to say that George hadn't picked up the kids like he'd previously agreed to, and could she drop them off at my place because she had work. I agreed for her to drop them off, and I tried to call George again. I called 12 times, and they all went to voicemail. I don't know where George is, and I've called his place of employment to try and find out. However, they refuse to tell me anything. I've agreed to watch the kids until Wednesday, and Susanna has reported this incident to the authorities. I assume she plans to file for full custody, and I can't blame her. Right now, I'm worried that George has run off somewhere and done something irresponsible. I'm just disgusted, and I will not be doing him any favors in the future unless he has a very good explanation and accepts some responsibility. This was hard to write, but felt good to get off my chest. Thank you everyone for responding. Hey OP, you're disappointed in your son for giving up on his marriage so easily. And I'll bet dollars to donuts that you and your daughter-in-law have been telling the twins that mommy and daddy are getting back together. I bet you asked your granddaughter to say something like that to help daddy realize that it would make everyone happy. You need to butt out of your kids' personal lives and get a darn hobby. OP, you owe me quite a few donuts then, since you'd be dead wrong. I'll poke my nose in my son's business when he's being an irresponsible parent and not taking accountability for his kids. Bethany is pregnant. It says time to have the twins and he's nowhere to be found. It just proves to me I should have made his personal life even more of my business. Alice caused drama and you exacerbated it by asking about Bethany. OP, Alice is 6 years old. She hardly meant to cause drama, as you put it. She's a 6-year-old kid who doesn't understand why her parents are no longer together. I never asked George if he was sure about Bethany in the context of, is she the one? I meant it in the context of, are you sure this is the right time to introduce her to the kids? I don't care who George ends up dating, but he has kids to think about, and my granddaughters need to come before any random woman he's been seeing for 4 months. Update. People suggested that I give George some space and time to figure things out as a recently divorced father, but after he ran off around 2 months ago, I ended up filing a missing persons report. I talked to George's workplace the day after I filed the report, and they told me he had given his 2 weeks about a month ago. I then tried calling George again, and he finally picked up. He told me he was okay, but he had moved states and no longer wanted any contact with his kids because it was all too much responsibility for him. I snapped at George and told him he couldn't just decide now that he didn't want to be a father. Then George told me he never wanted kids in the first place, and those kids don't look anything like me anyway. George then told me to buzz off and hung up the phone. After that, I informed the police what had happened to let them know that George wasn't in any danger and that we knew his whereabouts. After that happened, I just cried because I couldn't believe that I had raised such a selfish person. Susanna has filed for full custody, and George, as far as I know, is refusing to pay child support and will probably end up in jail at some point. Bethany is now 4 months pregnant and is having a boy, and George is the father. Somehow he managed to come up with the $500, so he will have to pay child support since he doesn't plan on being in the baby's life. Bethany moved into my home in November since she's had trouble doing things herself, and her doctor says she's at risk if she becomes too stressed during the pregnancy. In that time, we've gotten closer, and despite how our first meeting went, I actually have come to like Bethany. Sorry this isn't the happy ending some of you wanted. I've been following the advice I received from the first post, and I have not contacted George, and he's not tried to contact me. I can only hope with time he pulls himself together and manages to step up as a father. Thank you to everyone who gave helpful advice. Would I be the jerk for telling my friend I won't pet sit because of a stipulation her husband made? I, 30 female, have a friend, 30 female, we'll call her Cass, who asked me to watch her and her husband's, David, their pets, which are 2 cats and 2 dogs, from the 22nd to the 27th of December for them to spend time with family. David's mom bought plane tickets for them to visit for Christmas, and David had planned on having one of his friends watch the pets. Apparently, David and this friend had a falling out over League of Legends, and he burned that bridge with a very vicious comment. Cass asked me if I would be willing to watch the pets for them for the same amount they would have paid the other friend, $500. Cass also offered to cover my gas since I live about 40 minutes away without traffic, but would usually be around 1 to 1.5 hours due to traffic. I agreed to help pet sit under the impression that I would be going back and forth from my house to hers. I asked to meet with the pets before and get any information I needed in their care, etc. So we set a date to do that about 3 weeks before they left. We met up and I made lots of notes and also wanted to meet her husband so he knew who was taking care of his pets and house while he was away. It was while I was on this visit that I learned that they wanted me to stay at the house overnight while they were gone and be at the house a good part of the time. They were willing to offer their food and use of their entertainment services on their TV. This was fine with me as I thought it was fair and such. Now, I had only been dealing with Cass up to this point, and I barely met her husband for 2 to 3 minutes for the first time ever, since he was asleep till noon and was focused on building furniture that just came in when he was awake. Now things went downhill this afternoon because Cass wanted to talk since she was having anxiety about leaving her cat that she brought into the relationship. She has been at home with all of the pets since she quit her job earlier this month, and even before that would visit and let them out during lunch, which is also something David would do as well. To help quell her anxiety, I talked with her and got the last bit of info she wanted to relay. One was a stipulation David wanted to tack on, which was me not leaving the pets more than 3 hours. I had already moved my work schedule for both of my jobs to accommodate for me staying overnight to watch the pets. However, I was under the impression that I would be able to leave the pets for a relatively normal amount of time that I would need to leave my own dogs alone for when I have work, 4 to 6 hours minimum. When I told Cass that I had planned to spend time with my significant other's family on the 24th and my own family on the 25th, but I would be willing to limit it only to my family's Christmas, since I knew that would be a bit too much time for both over 2 days, and 3 hours would not be enough time for presents, food, cleanup, dessert, and the 2+ hours needed to travel from their house to mine and back for my family Christmas. Since it was his stipulation, she needed to talk with him about it, but knew he'd get mad because I couldn't say yes to his stipulation. My friend said she would just stay home with the pets, which she knew would upset her husband as well. She texted me about an hour later, telling me he was mad and would allow the 6 hours I estimated, but would take off $50 and wrote things that were obvious things I would do taking care of the pets as if I didn't have enough sense to do them in the first place. Now this upset me since me spending time with my family on Christmas should not be a point of contention, and wanting to be honest about the amount of time it should take should not be up for debate. If this was such an important point, it should have been mentioned when I was getting all of the other information and not days before they leave. I originally planned to counter since the amount I would be paid per hour would be $3.47, and so for 6 hours to be deducted, it would be about $20, and just say he could take that off. But honestly, his disregard for me wanting to celebrate with my family while he goes out to visit his own, is just really unrealistic. So, would I be the jerk for telling them they need to find someone else? Not the jerk. You've been very accommodating, and the husband, at least, seems manipulative. I would be curious what their relationship is like because your friend seems a bit wary of her husband. OP. To be honest, I've been uncomfortable with him since they started dating 5 or 6 months ago. They got married at the end of October or beginning of November because she got pregnant, and she officially moved into his house a month before that. He seemed to rush everything, and she seemed to be swept up in that alarmingly quick. Exactly. OP needs to understand that she has the power in this transaction here. She needs to tell them to forget his stipulations and find someone else. Today is the 19th. They're not going to find any pet boarders this late and likely not going to find anyone willing to do this. Instead of him docking the pay, I'd tell them to pay more. For 4 pets over 5 days and affecting her holidays, $500 isn't enough. Of course, I don't expect the husband to be rational, considering he's a 30-year-old who had a falling out with a friend over League of Legends. OP. When he decided to cut the $50 off the original compensation, I knew immediately he did it out of anger and to try and manipulate me into doing what he wanted by scaring me into it. He thought he could control me the way he does anything else. However, I have a lot of experience with emotionally immature behaviors and refuse to play whatever game they want. Update. I'm sure many of you are wondering what I did in this situation, and I decided not to pet sit for them. I messaged my friend this morning telling her, I honestly don't think I'm the right fit for you and your husband for pet sitting now. I'm sorry, but you guys need to find someone else. This was a difficult decision to make, but I just do not feel comfortable now with the turn of events that have occurred. So far, she hasn't responded. I'm perfectly fine with this because I don't think having her and her husband is something I want. I'm a recovering people pleaser and really needed to know that my boundary was reasonable. But your support really helped me see this. I will be enjoying my Christmas stress-free with my family and my own dogs. I will also be spending time celebrating with my significant other and my very, very supportive friends. Some things that I also wanted to address. I've been friends with her for about 15 years. 11 of those have been long distance, and we haven't been that close in recent years. She's only known her husband for 6 months, and they've been married for 3 of those. They did not have a ceremony, but went to City Hall to get married, so I didn't have the chance to meet him before checking out the pets. I'm worried about her being in this marriage, because since she is pregnant and seemed to be swept up very quickly with him. I had been on alert about him since he had her meet his son on their second date, which also made me question his parenting as well. His blow-up with his friend that was supposed to pet sit wasn't over a single game, but over them thinking he cheated on rank games since he did worse when playing with them, and he said it was because he played with them for fun. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I'm staying with my dad full-time until I don't have to share my room? I, 15 female, live 1 week with my dad and another with my mom. They divorced 3 years ago, and my mom has been dating John for a year. John and I don't hate each other, but we're not close. We all live in the same town as most of my dad's side of the family, so other than my music lessons, I also hung out a lot with my cousins and didn't spend a lot of time around John. A month ago, John and his daughter, Trisha, who's 11, moved in temporarily into my house because there was a fire at theirs. My house has 2 bedrooms, so Trisha has to stay in my room. My bed is a bunk bed because I was getting a sister, but my mom lost them. Trisha and I hung out only a few times before this, but I can say the same about her and John. I don't hate her, but she turns out to be hard to live with. She has long hair and her hair is everywhere. She talks in her sleep, and I was woken up 5 or 6 times since her stay. She also sometimes tried to speak to me when I already turned off my lamp, a sign that I was going to sleep. I talked to my mom, and she said I needed to be nicer to her since she's been through a lot, that my issues were just minor inconveniences, that Trisha would be back at her own home soon, in late January. I talked to my dad, and he said I could just move in with him until Trisha leaves. I then packed my bags and told my mom I'll be staying at Dad's. She blew up at me, saying what a spoiled brat I am and that I'm making John and Trisha feel horrible for imposing. I just laughed. It's been a week now, and my mom never reached out to me. She dropped my Christmas presents at my grandma's because my dad and I would celebrate Christmas there. I don't think my mom can get the law involved because I'm 15, and I just have to tell them the living situation and they should understand. Besides, it's only till I can have my room back again. Still, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but your dad should have had a conversation with your mom and he went about this the wrong way. As a family court attorney, I have a different view on much of this. In my state, if your mom got the law involved, you could be made to return. I'm often asked if at 12, 14, or 16, can I make the decision where I live, or my kid can pick? The answer is the court will consider your wishes in my state, but not let you pick. In the same way, if you pick your dad, your mom can't just turn off paying support or disown you. There are rights and responsibilities involved. People too often think every case is a reasonable teen who can pick, and forget that if the law freely allowed kids to just pick sides, that it would be really easy for kids to play parents completely off each other and end up with zero supervision. All this is to say, I think you have some real feelings. I think people should listen to you. I don't think either of your parents are acting like adults. I, male 32, think I saw my baby's chart and I can't be the father. My wife is 30. We had a difficult birth. Everything is fine, mother is recovering, and the baby is doing well. I went to talk to the nurse and a chart was up on the computer. I think they listed our baby as type B blood. There was a lot on the screen, a lot going on, and my head was swimming, so I'm not certain that's what it said, and I'm not even certain that was our kid's chart. We're both type A. We donate blood, so I'm 100% certain of our blood types. It doesn't immediately register, but I checked, and that shouldn't be possible, meaning I'm not the father if our baby has type B blood. I'm not sure what to do next. Should I ask my wife? She's still recovering, and I don't want to stress her out unnecessarily. Can I ask the hospital to see the chart? We're already home. Do I just get a home paternity test and wait to get the results? Edit. I called the hospital this morning, and they told me how to access the web portal and get the lab results. Blood type is listed as B, but there is no Rh factor listed, positive or negative. So I was right in what I was seeing, but the info is incomplete or inaccurate. 2 A parents can have an A or an O baby. All the other theories are basically impossible, including hospitals switching the baby. There are only 2 realistic possibilities, in order of what I think most likely. 1. The labs are wrong. Or 2. I'm not the father. I'm not going to talk to my wife about this because it doesn't lead anywhere good right now. Oh, for goodness sake, just ask the nurse what your baby's blood type is. If there's one thing I've learned from Reddit, it's you should immediately accuse your wife of cheating. Go stay with your mom and get your mom to also accuse your wife of cheating. Then get a paternity test, and when it comes back that you are the father, you get mad at your wife for being mean about it and blow up your marriage. Please don't forget to also have all of your friends and relatives blow up her phone. I called out my brother's girlfriend for being a gold digger after she Googled the cost of our Christmas gifts. My brother James has a girlfriend, Lindsay, who he's been dating for 7 months. He decided to bring her to Christmas at my house, stay over Christmas Eve, and leave the next day after lunch. I had met Lindsay at drinks before this, and she seemed nice. When they arrived, Lindsay walked in and complimented my decorations, large tree in the foyer, and asked how much they cost. I was a bit surprised by the question, but I just said, more than I'd like, and moved on. Throughout the evening, she asked several questions centered around money. She asked my husband how much he paid for our house, my stepdad how much money he made in his previous job, how much my watch cost. She even Googled one of our art pieces to see how much it sold for, and started talking about how crazy it was that we spent that much, which frankly was very uncomfortable. My stepdad pulled my brother aside and asked if there was a problem, but my brother just said it was normal for her to do that, but he did say he'd speak to her about it. On Christmas morning, we all gathered around to open presents, and thankfully, Lindsay hadn't said anything else, so I figured James had spoken to her about her intrusive questions. However, at lunch, we were talking about plans for January, and Lindsay proudly said she didn't know how we could afford to do anything in January as she added up the total we'd spent on gifts, and then proudly proclaimed the total amount. The whole table went silent, and honestly, I was equal parts shocked and annoyed that someone could be so ignorant. I looked at Lindsay and said, "You are the world's most diligent gold digger. Seriously, would you like to be the family accountant since you're already tracking expenses?" Lindsay stuttered out an apology and tried to explain, but my stepdad just changed the conversation and we moved on. She was mercifully quiet for the rest of dinner. After they left, my brother messaged me saying that I'd really upset Lindsay and I was out of line with what I said. I argued that he had said he had talked to her and he clearly didn't. Not that someone should have needed guidance to know how crass her comments were. He's saying I owe both of them an apology, but I think Lindsay's behavior was disgraceful. My parents say Lindsay was wrong, but I probably should have said something in private, or they could have, and I shouldn't have said something in front of everyone. Am I the jerk? All of these everyone sucks here's and you're the jerk replies are dumbfounding. Have any of you people ever had an interaction with an actual human being? In what world is asking people about how much money they make and adding up the totals of Christmas gifts normal? Not the jerk. She was being incredibly rude and obviously making everyone uncomfortable. I just don't understand why everyone here is making excuses for her, semantics of the terminology or not. Why would you sit there and add up the total of what a family spent and then tell them about it? They know. Whether you grew up with money or not, common sense is required, unless she's on the spectrum, which is the common excuses the you're the jerks and everyone sucks here people are giving. But come on, people here always get defensive when someone posts here and is from a wealthier background, constantly making excuses. If this was reversed, would you guys be okay with it? If she Googled how much a pair of socks or how much an old TV was and passed a comment, if she went on about how little the family spent and then declared at Christmas morning, "Oh, you guys should have loads of money in January since you spent so little during Christmas," would you all be making the same comments? I doubt it. You'd be up in arms and calling her a snob. Not the jerk, and I really don't get the people saying you are the jerk. It's so unbelievably rude to make so many comments about money. I could see maybe one or two offhanded comments, but to fixate on money so much that you tally up how much money was spent on Christmas presents and then announce it to the whole family? Don't apologize to your brother. Why should you? His girlfriend came into your house for Christmas and immediately started questioning you about money and practically appraising everything in your house. She should be apologizing to you, and your brother should be apologizing on her behalf. If someone is rude to you, you're allowed to defend yourself and shut them down, which is what you did. Maybe next time she'll learn to keep her mouth shut and not constantly talk about money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their brother's girlfriend? Please let us know. How much did you pay for that suit, Reddit boy? Anything over $20 and you got ripped off. Am I the jerk for removing the door to my son's room indefinitely? Yesterday, while I was making lunch, I heard a really loud sound, as if the ceiling was falling or a bookshelf had fallen. My husband, 41, male, and our daughter, 17, were out. The only other person in the house was my son, who's 16. I was pretty sure he was in his room, which is at the opposite side of the house from the kitchen. So while making my way there, I checked every room and everything seemed in order. I knocked on my son's door and called his name. No answer. I must have knocked and called 3 times before trying to open the door, which was locked. At this point, I was getting really freaked out, thinking that maybe he had tipped his wardrobe or bookshelf and it had fallen over him and he was passed out on the floor. I was basically screaming his name, but no answer. I have no idea how I did it. I just threw myself into the door and it broke. Now, clearly the door was already weak. I'm thinking termites. But yeah, it broke. My son was fine. He was freaked out about the door, but he was fine. The sound was his TV with the volume at the max, apparently, and he didn't answer me calling because he didn't want me bothering his movie. His words were, "You were screaming like a harpy and it was annoying. I was trying to watch the movie. Fix the door." I said no. I wasn't going to fix it, since to fix it, I would have to buy a new door, and doors are expensive. And as soon as his dad got home, he would remove the door entirely as it was too broken to just stay there. He got really mad, said it's his right to have a door. He deserves his privacy. I said he had a door, and while I was the one that broke it, it was a consequence of his actions. So if he wanted a door, he would have to buy it. I know he doesn't have the money for it right now. Until then, no door. He can change in the bathroom. He said, "Forget you." I said he was grounded. Am I the jerk about the door? My husband is fine with it, says only I know how scared I was, so only I can know the appropriate punishment. I'm now terrified that if anything happens where we really need to reach my son, we won't be able to. But I have calmed down since, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. Not the jerk. Replace the door, remove the TV from his room. You would be the jerk for not getting him a new door. He needs privacy. He doesn't need a TV. Think of different and better ways to discipline that don't remove his privacy and space. Kids typically don't need a TV. If he didn't answer because of the TV, take that away and not his door. I usually say parents are always jerks for taking away doors, but this? Absolutely not the jerk. But you and your husband need to sit down and think about how to fix your son's behavior ASAP, because he's way out of line. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know. Yowza, having a son that acts like that, no wonder some folks are deciding they don't want to have kids. Karen demands a silver laptop. This story dates back to about 9 years ago when I, male, 31 at the time that the story took place, worked as a lead IT technician for a large multinational company. The company had a range of different laptops available for employees to choose from that were classified by their size and weight. This is important for later, including standard laptops, which had a 14-inch screen, as well as lightweight laptops, smaller and thinner with a 12.5-inch screen, handy if you're a frequent traveler. Most of these laptops were pretty boring, gray business devices, nothing special to look at. Anyway, one day the computer manufacturer introduced a new lightweight laptop model that was silver in color and a far more sleek and good-looking than the previous gray model. We had deployed a few of these around the building and soon got a visit from a lady who'd seen one of her colleagues with a shiny new silver laptop and had developed a severe case of shiny device envy. We'll call her Karen for the purpose of this story. Karen, how do I go about getting one of those smaller laptops? Me, your current standard laptop isn't due to be replaced yet, but you can request a change to a lightweight laptop on the IT website. Your manager will need to approve it, however. Now, to be honest, I wasn't a particular fan of people who waste the company's money simply by wanting the latest shiny gadgets, especially because it creates additional work for my team and involves replacing equipment that's still perfectly functional and within warranty. But I behaved in a professional manner and I simply towed the company line. Karen walked away, and the next day an approved request came through for a lightweight laptop. Fair enough. What she didn't know was that company policy dictated that we only provided a brand new laptop if we didn't have usable second-hand laptops in stock. For example, the ones that IT handed back in when they left the company. Being the good IT tech that I am, I scoured our return shelf, and sure enough, there was a used lightweight laptop in stock. Unfortunately for this lady, it was last year's gray model. But rules are rules, so I asked one of my team to prep it for her. She's then told that it's ready and comes along to pick it up. She takes one look at it and promptly throws a tantrum. This isn't the one I wanted the silver one. Me. Sorry, company policy is that we can only order a new laptop if we don't have usable second-hand ones in stock. Karen. But this is not the one that I ordered. Me. Yes, it is. You ordered a lightweight laptop, and this is exactly what we've set up for you. I turn the laptop over, and I show her the company's sticker, confirming that it's the same classification of lightweight laptop as her request. And I show her that it's physically smaller and lighter than her existing laptop. No, I wanted a new silver one. This is unacceptable. I'm going to complain to your boss. She stormed off in a huff, and I could soon hear her complaining inside my boss's office. Unfortunately, although my boss knew I was just following the process, he couldn't handle all of the repeated moaning and soon folded and asked me to order a new device for her. I wasn't pleased at being overruled when I was simply applying company policy, particularly when it's just a waste of money for an employee that wants the latest silver gadget, so cue malicious compliance. I could have just scoured our shelf of brand new laptops and dug out a new one for her. We installed dozens of laptops a week. It was a big company, so we always had plenty of new ones in stock. But I was told to order a new one. That's the process that I'd follow. Me. Okay, we can order a brand new silver one for you, but you'll need to raise another request ticket so we can order the laptop from it. I said this knowing full well that this ticket would go to Karen's manager once again for approval, a manager who has a finite department budget. Sure enough, an hour later, I get a phone call from their manager. Manager. Why is Karen ordering yet another laptop? Me. She didn't like the color of the laptop we'd prepared for her. It was gray and she wanted a silver one. Manager. How much is this going to cost me? Me. Well, you'll still be paying the monthly lease cost on their original laptop as it wasn't due for replacement, plus the lease costs on the lightweight laptop we prepared for her earlier. And there'll also be the lease cost for this new laptop as well. Manager. Oh, no way. I'm not paying for all that. I'll reject this ticket and I'll have a word with her. A short while later, Karen returns. She's rather quiet and humble now after being chastised by her boss for trying to waste all of his budget in the pursuit of having the latest shiny silver gadget. She quietly accepts the gray lightweight laptop we'd prepared earlier for her and then quickly departs. I spend the rest of the day with a grin on my face. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend for eating my donut? This is so dumb, but this is somehow one of the biggest fights we've had. I bought a crappy donut earlier today after me and my boyfriend finished some Christmas shopping and had dinner. I bought one and we were going to share it. We regularly share food. We go to my parents' house to pick up our dog and chill out a bit before going home. I'm in the bathroom and my boyfriend starts eating my donut and telling me how bad it is. Stale and there's no cream in it. It's a Boston cream. I tell him that there's no way he's eating my donut right now and to stop or at least save me some of it. He eats the whole donut. I get out of the bathroom and I'm kind of upset. I wanted some of that donut tonight. He's being silly and put himself in the corner in the kitchen, pretending he's there out of shame. I'm upset and ask him if he really ate it, and he makes a joke and says it was so bad and not worth the calories. I just wanted a donut, so I tell him that and he should have saved me some. He says that he apologized here, but I don't even remember this. We go back into the living room and my dad is telling me to drop it and that I'm overreacting for no reason. My mom is telling my boyfriend to apologize just because it obviously bothered me, and that's reason enough to apologize. My mom was kind of condescending towards him and the vibe got tense. I don't want to start some dumb fight over nothing, so we say our goodbyes and leave. On the way home, I ask him to apologize, and he says I'm making a big deal out of nothing and hugely overreacting. I say he's gaslighting me. We're both upset. We get home and keep talking about it in circles. I just want an apology to end this, and he starts yelling that I'm acting like a 5-year-old and that I made a scene in front of my parents and that I'm overreacting so badly he doesn't even recognize me. I'm mad because he's gaslighting me into thinking I'm wrong and yelling at me for no reason, and it doesn't matter if the donut was bad or not. At least half of it was mine. Anyways, he yells, my feelings are hurt, and we go to separate rooms and chill out for a bit. Later, we talk about it a bit and we both apologize, but maintain that we are in the right. So Reddit, who's in the right in this extremely dumb fight? We have both reviewed this post and we agree with its facts. Him, he claims he wouldn't have been mad if I ate the last Oreo as an example, and that I dragged it out for too long, meaning my anger because it was just a donut. He says that he felt singled out by my mom, and that's worse than the donut. Edit. My boyfriend insisted I add that we've been together for 8 years, and that if this happened a month into our relationship, he agrees it would be psychotic. But what's a donut or two after 8 years? Not the jerk. He ate your half of the donut. He knew you were meant to share it. He then made excuses for eating the whole thing and then tried to blame you for overreacting. And tried the old, I wouldn't be mad if you did the same. You know he would be. He owes you a donut or a donut equivalent. Not the jerk. The plan was to share it, right? He selfishly inhaled the whole thing. He should apologize and make up for it next time. Your parents probably shouldn't have got involved. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. This isn't even about the donut. It's about his lack of consideration for how you feel. Has he always acted like this or is it something new? Am I the jerk for not helping a woman who had a baby with my ex-husband get survivor's benefits? I'm 43. My ex-husband, Duke, 54, and I divorced because he habitually cheated on me. We were divorced a little over 2 years when he passed in a motorcycle accident. I paid for his funeral because of my daughter who's 15, and despite everything, he was her father, and I didn't want the state to bury him. That was 4 months ago, and my daughter is doing well. I applied for survivor's benefits for her shortly after his funeral and have been receiving monthly payments. Yesterday, I received a phone call from my caseworker at the Social Security office informing me that a woman called claiming that she had a 3-year-old son by my ex. However, the woman had no proof the boy is actually my ex-husband's, no signed birth certificate or DNA test. The caseworker asked me if I would be willing to allow my daughter to do a DNA test to prove the kid's paternity. I refused. I did the math, and this baby was definitely conceived while I was still married to my ex. Furthermore, at the time of the conception, I had gone through a very difficult hysterectomy with major setbacks. I suspect I know who this woman is, and she definitely knew my ex-husband and I were still married. I'm mad, and I'm not even sure that I'm doing the right thing by refusing, but I was humiliated enough by my ex when he was alive, and I feel even more embarrassed now. Update. About a month after I found out about this kid, I did indeed tell my daughter, who is now 17 by the way. She was shocked, as you can imagine, and very hurt by her dad's actions. I explained to her the full situation, and she didn't want to do it then. She said she needed time, so that's what I gave her. Incidentally, she has been in therapy since before, during, and after the divorce. Her father and her were never really close at all. The woman who had an affair with my husband was a work colleague/friend. We all worked together at the same place. We both still work there, just in different areas. After I got the call from my caseworker, several mutual acquaintances approached me and told me that she wanted to sit down and talk with me about her problem. I thought about that for a few days and ultimately decided to meet up with her. We met at a coffee shop by our job on Saturday. She told me that she and my ex started out as friends at first. He would give her advice on how to deal with her other two kids' dad. She said she very quickly turned it into flirting and hanging out and eventually a full-on affair. By this time, he's telling her I was getting suspicious that something was going on and she was already pregnant. She told him about the pregnancy and he told her he wouldn't be leaving me, but he would assist her with whatever the kid needed. She was hurt and angry, but stuck with the situation as she was already struggling with the two kids she had and needed the help. She went on to say that he was very much in love with me and that she was jealous of me for having him. Not one time was this woman remorseful. No apologies, nothing. I asked her did she even care what their affair did to my daughter, and she replied no because she had enough on her plate dealing with her own kids and, quite frankly, didn't care about mine. That's word for word, by the way. At this point, I told her that I've informed my daughter about her son and she's currently not interested in participating in this scenario. She got outraged by that, telling me I have to make my daughter do this, that she is only part-time at our job and her kids can't survive on her income alone. I told her that she was a jerk, that if she even felt a little bit of guilt, I might have been able to talk my daughter around, but her lack of respect for my daughter's feelings is why I won't. I left her there yelling at me as I walked away to my car. She has since quit working at our job. Over the past year, I've addressed the situation with my daughter and she still doesn't want to do it. I've told her it's her decision either way and I support what she wants. My ex's parents are both deceased and his one sister is passed. He has an older brother, but they haven't communicated in decades. I tried to find out about him when my ex passed, but I couldn't find anything. My ex was passed 2 full days before the police finally got in contact with me. It was a shock. I never hated him. I hated what he did. There is a difference. Update 2. First off, let me say, I did not hate my husband. I don't even hate his affair partner. In the moment when this all happened, I was in shock and total disbelief. I reacted without any real thought. I challenge anyone on here to say they haven't responded angrily with unwanted and unexpected news. However, I'm not a person who doesn't think of consequences to my actions, and that's why I sat down, calmed down, and figured out how to proceed. I talked to both my mom and my brothers before I talked to my daughter. They were also shocked, but urged me to talk to my daughter and get her input on the situation. Some of you think that I'm using this situation to get back at my ex. I'm not. My ex and I talked at least twice a week. We had disagreements, sure, like other people. I wish he would have told me the truth, honestly. The affair had long been out in the bag. I'm not going to say I would have enjoyed hearing it, but at least we would have known. See, we're too busy living and oftentimes we subconsciously think everything will work out for the best. It never goes that way though, does it? If he would have told us, we could have got over any shock, hurt, or resentment, and possibly the kids could have met each other a long time ago. I would have known about the boy, and we all would have been felt better prepared for when he passed. Who knows? But I'm no longer angry or hurt. Trust me when I say that I want an amicable solution to this as much as you do. That day in the coffee shop with her, I once again reacted, but I'm human and I have feelings. My ex-husband had no one else but us. As I said, he has a brother who I spent weeks trying to locate, but I couldn't. I would never have let him be buried by the state because at the end of the day, we still loved him. I was married to him for 17 years, for goodness sake. The affair partner made her choices and it didn't work out for her. She hasn't lost any sleep worrying about who else she hurt along the way, but expects the very people she hurt the most to care about her hardships. The narcissism is astonishing. The teenage daughter deserves all of the time she needs. The responsibility for the toddler is on his mother, not his half-sister. She got angry because the affair partner said she doesn't care about OP's daughter. But realistically, OP similarly doesn't care about affair partner's son. She may not hate the kid, but she also doesn't have much concern for him. Also, I don't know how survivorship works. Is there a fixed benefit that would get split if the affair partner were approved? Or would OP keep the same amount of benefits and more money would be available for the affair partner? It would get split between the daughter and the son, as both would be next of kin. I hope the affair partner finds a good job and stops running after men to help take care of her kids. Getting pregnant may have even been intentional, as the only strategy she knows for keeping a man who willingly helps her provide for her and other kids. The sheer callousness of the affair partner to say that she never cared about what issues she was causing to the guy's family is telling. Her poor kids are the ones to suffer for their mom's actions. Hope she gets a good job so she can stop bringing kids into the world that she can't take care of. Why do these horrible guys who cheat on their partners get all the women, while chill guys like me who would actually be loyal always get turned down? Call me a nice guy all you want, but you know it's true. So many of these stories on here are about guys who treat their girlfriend or wife really bad. These are the same girls that turn down good guys like me, and now karma is catching up to them. Brad and the table. This story was told to me by my friend Lucy. At the time, she lived in an army town and worked for many summers at a restaurant popular with the officers and their families. At this particular restaurant, which was on the higher end, there's a table reserved for high-ranking officers who visit the base. People who work there refer to it as the table. On busier nights, when there isn't a higher-ranking officer in town, it's utilized to seat more patrons, but for the most part, it's left alone. It's Friday, so it's busy. There's a general visiting the base, so the table isn't being used just in case he decides to grace the establishment with his presence. Lucy is manning her section when the owner, John for the purpose of this story, waves her down. She heads over and he tells her, "I need you and Annie, another server, to help me man the table." "The general is coming?" she asked. "Nope, Brad is." Lucy rolled her eyes. Brad was a local bigwig's high school-age son, and he had it in his mind that he was a hotshot. He frequented the restaurant with his girl of the week and proceeded to make a nuisance of himself every time, but not enough to the point that he was asked to leave. Lucy asked John, "Are you sure? What if the general wants to eat dinner with us?" At this, John leaned in with a wide smile and said, "Apparently, the general called and he told us to give Brad the table and to give him and his guests anything he wanted." Lucy then smiled as she realized what was about to happen. Brad was about to get a serving of malicious compliance on the house. 20 minutes later, Brad, wearing a West Point blazer, arrives with several young people. John makes a big show of greeting them and escorting them to the table. The people look around, impressed, and Brad proceeds to command Lucy, John, and Annie around like he owns the restaurant. The only good thing about this particular experience was that, due to his age, Brad and his buddies never tried to order any alcohol. Brad proceeded to be a nuisance, demanding more appetizers, sending food back because it wasn't cooked right, ordering the most expensive entrees on the menu, yada yada yada. Lucy, Annie, and John continue with this, smiling as more and more food is added to the table. It's time for the check. Lucy told me that the entire group managed to rack up $843, not counting the mandatory gratuity because the party is above a certain size. Brad gets the bill, and he flips out. "What is this?" he barked, waving the check. "It's your check," John said. "The general said to let you order anything you wanted." Brad stands up to argue, and that's when the host rushes up, her face white. "John, the general is here," she whispered. Everyone turns to look, and there's the general with his entourage. John excuses himself before going over. He and the general start to talk for a few minutes, and Lucy notices Brad turning white and starting to get out of his seat. Annie looked at him and said, You better not try to dine and dash. I really don't want to have to sick these nice officers on you. Brad sat down and fidgeted. John and the general came back to the table. Making eye contact with Brad, John said, "Brad, you said the good general here insisted you have the table and that you can order anything you want. Is this true?" He only nodded. "Well, the general here said that he never made no such phone call." That's odd," Brad said before looking at the general. I'm pretty sure it was you I talked to, sir." "I have the phone number. Let's call it," John said, pulling out his cell phone and dialing the number. That's when they heard Brad's new cell phone ringing in his pocket. The general held his hand out and Brad puts the phone in his hand. He checks the number and asks John, "Is this your phone number?" "It is," John said. The general then proceeded to get a serious look on his face. "Brad, are you a cadet?" "I'm being considered for an appointment," Brad said. The general nodded. "I suggest you pay your bill, tip in full, and apologize to the staff for your behavior," he said to Brad. "I also suggest withdrawing your name as soon as possible to save yourself the embarrassment." Keeping his head down, Brad paid the bill, meekly apologized, and left with his friends. The general and his entourage patiently waited for the table to be cleared and set. They proceeded to have a nice meal, leaving a generous tip and apologizing for people like Brad. Lucy proceeded to have a wonderful Brad-free career. My cousin is pregnant and none of us are happy about it. I'm 31, female, and my younger cousin, who's 28, recently found out that she's pregnant. She's really excited, but she found out that she's having triplets. The dad, who's 45, is a real piece of work and he won't even be in the picture, and he can't offer financial support either. She doesn't make very much money and she has no savings. I myself have 2 kids, and even with the financial and emotional support of my partner, it can be very stressful. Over the past few weeks, I've gently tried to tell her that it may not be a green pasture ahead. She doesn't even have a functional car right now. It's like her head is stuck in the sand and she's only talking about how amazing it will be, how blessed she is, how it's a miracle, how she'll just figure it out. On Christmas Eve, she surprised the rest of the family with the news after doing a big surprise scavenger hunt that led to 3 onesies. Her mom already knew, but she told grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. She didn't get the reaction that she was hoping for. Some people told her she should consider her options. Some talked to her about how hard this will be, asked about how she will afford this, wanted to know what support the dad would be giving, etc. It was not very celebratory. I could tell she was upset and she left early. I went to talk to her this morning in her studio apartment. I told her I was sorry for everyone's reaction, but that I could see where the family was coming from and that they just wanted what was best for her and were concerned. I asked her what she expected the reaction to be, and she told me she thought everyone would rally together to help her now and to offer a bunch of help once the babies arrived. She expected financial support too. I told her that she can't rely on others like that, and she will likely have to figure a lot of this out on her own if she goes through with it. She told me that I'm horrible, that our family is terrible, and that we all deserve each other, and that unless she gets our support, she'll cut us all out. Then she told me to leave. In some ways, I think it's a reality check, but the more I think about it, I also know how overwhelming it is to be pregnant, and I'm sorry that she didn't get any happy reactions or offers of support. Especially because in the past, other family members have gotten very happy family reactions when sharing their pregnancies. Am I the jerk for agreeing with the rest of our family? You're the jerk, and most of your family is too. She's obviously happy about the pregnancy and wants those kids. Suggesting considering her options when she shares the news is vile. All of you could have shared your concerns in a much more supportive and sensible way. You're the jerk. You and your delusional family have no right whatsoever to determine whether or not your cousin gets to have her babies. That is her choice and hers alone. I can't imagine how heartbreaking it must have been for her to have you monsters show her absolutely zero affection whatsoever when she shares the greatest joy one can imagine with you. Regardless of what you think, she has been blessed and the Lord has a plan for these babies. She doesn't need you or anyone else's approval in order to have them. Not the jerk. I'm not surprised that these comments are tearing into you. You're speaking a language that Reddit doesn't understand. It's called common sense. She doesn't have an income, a car, or a partner who will even be in the picture, but expects to have triplets and be able to raise them? Another fine example of how truly unintelligent the people on Reddit are to claim that she's in the right and you and your family are in the wrong. We live in a world where speaking common sense will paint you as the bad guy, and people wonder why everything is only getting worse and will continue to do so. If anyone knows a country where the people have common sense, please let me know so I can move there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP and their family or their cousin? Please let us know. If she cuts all of you out of her life, sounds like it'll be a win for you, to be honest. Sounds like she plans to be a leech the rest of her life. My parents call me out at Christmas dinner for living with my fiance before marriage. Okay, two can play this game. I'm a nurse practitioner and I'm the primary care provider for a lot of the low-risk maternity cases at the practice where I work. I also work hand in hand with the doctors and midwives to create a healthy maternity, birth, and postpartum situation. My fiance is completing her residency. We live together and have for a few years now. We aren't in any hurry to get married. We originally had plans to do so a couple of years ago, but then we got really busy for 2 years. It's driving my very religious parents crazy that their youngest son is living in sin. I don't really care. I'm an adult and I do what I want. We're getting married in June. So we're visiting my parents for Christmas. The way it came together this year, everyone is at my parents' house. So that's my folks, my 3 siblings, myself and fiance, and 7 grandkids, so 17 people. At dinner, my mom starts going on about how she's so glad that we're finally getting married and she won't be embarrassed at church anymore. And my dad says how proud he is of his 3 older kids who all either waited to get married before moving in together or got married right away after moving in together. My fiance was getting embarrassed and I was getting mad over this stupid argument we have had too many times. And a family dinner was the last straw. I've asked them repeatedly to just accept that they cannot control how I live my life. I refuse to stay with them when I visit, even if I come alone. Hotels are just easier. So I started talking about a premature baby I had been reading about. It was almost 3 months premature and weighed about 1.6 pounds. It was super strong and healthy for being born so little, and the NICU had high hopes for the baby doing well. My mom and dad both got deer-in-the-headlights looks on their faces. Too bad. Shouldn't have messed around with my fiance's feelings. So I asked my oldest brother. He was born almost 4 months premature. Is there a chance that we could check out the family album where we keep all the records of family births and stuff? I already know my brother was over 9 pounds and almost 23 inches long when he was born. My grandmother told me about it the first time my parents tried to shame me. The subject gets changed very fast. After supper, my parents told me that I should not have tried to embarrass them with private things that are not my concern. I told them that if I heard anything about my living arrangements ever again for the rest of my life, I would make sure to keep bringing up the fact that my mom was in her 2nd trimester when they got married. My parents are mad at me for telling them how to behave in their own home, but my fiance is happy that they seem to be off the subject for good. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. That was beautifully handled. You didn't call them out and embarrass them, but you stood your ground. I did laugh out loud when you said where you got your blackmail information. Grandma had that in her pocket for a long time, I'm guessing. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a great New Year. Not the jerk. I absolutely love this. My own judgy grandmother pretended to be oh so moral in the old-fashioned sense. My father accidentally revealed that she was pregnant when she got married to my grandfather. That was incorrect. She wasn't pregnant at all. My oldest uncle was about 7 months old when they got married. And why they couldn't get married sooner? My grandfather had to get divorced from his first wife first. It's often the people with the most things to hide who enjoy judging others for things that are none of their business. Am I the jerk for buying my niece a $4,000 gift for Christmas? I happen to marry into a family with an insane amount of money. More than they know what to do with, quite honestly. I spent approximately $15,000 per kid for my 3 kids for Christmas, which I am immensely grateful to be able to spend on them. I also donated the same amount to a charity of each kid's choice as well. My mom's side has a rule that we only get each other Christmas gifts if we will be seeing each other that year on Christmas Day. For cousins with kids, we get the kids gifts rather than their parents. My mother hosted this year, and about 10 of my cousins and their kids were coming. I bought each of my cousins' kids something unique, not really thinking about the price, but more what I thought that they would like. My cousin, 35, male, has a 14-year-old daughter. She's the result of a random hookup, so most of us in the family have only met her mother a handful of times and only for a few minutes. My daughter is also 14, and two parts of her Christmas Day gifts were a Cartier love ring and a YSL purse. I bought the same for my cousin's daughter, as they are very close in age, and I thought that she'd really like it. My cousin's daughter excitedly FaceTimed her mother to show her the gifts that I had bought her, and upon ending the FaceTime, her mother called my cousin and she was livid. She said that I spent more on her daughter for Christmas than she had and was livid with me. I genuinely didn't think about the cost of the gifts, just more what I thought that she would really like, especially considering I have a 14-year-old daughter myself and I know what they like. My cousin's daughter's mother is really upset with me because she feels that I made her look bad to her own daughter, but I only ever intended on getting her daughter gifts that I thought she'd like. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Most 14-year-olds don't dream of YSL purses and Cartier bracelets. I think the money has gone to your head and you just don't live in the real world anymore. What's normal to you and your husband's family is not normal for the majority of the world. I spent $15,000 on each of my 3 kids and donated the same amount to charity. Who spends $90,000 at Christmas? Even if I had it, I wouldn't. People who can afford to? Why is that an issue here? Because Reddit hates people that they're jealous of. I'd love to have gotten a YSL purse at 14 and happy to be able to help out at my favorite cause. But then some others get so jealous they have to resort to hate to put people down. Human nature is a funny thing. Or, get this, they hate the extreme wealth disparity that exists in many countries. Which is OP's fault how? And giving equal amounts to helping others as she gives to her kids is literally helping mitigate that wealth gap. Or would you prefer she empties her bank account and house and gives it all away? Her husband's family success is not something she needs to apologize for. Honestly, people don't get into fortunes big enough that they can spend effortlessly $90,000 for Christmas gifts by being fair. They do that by exploiting workers, clients, environment, and/or the law system. Because being a decent person is not profitable. And sure, OP probably has nothing to do with the cause of the fortune, but she profits off that exploit, and people do have the right to be salty about it. And spending a bit of it on charity, which usually gets included in taxes anyway, does not make it even by no means. Not the jerk. I think you did a nice thing that was just a little extravagant and you unintentionally overshadowed her mother. I think her mother overreacted. It's not like you bought her a car or a puppy or something she needs to be responsible for. To be honest, I think a lot of the "you're the jerk" comments you're getting are from people who are quite jealous and annoyed that you have so much money to spend. I don't think you're malicious at all. I do think the money was excessive, but not enough for me to call you a jerk. So I'm going to vote not the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I kicked my family out on Christmas after what they said to my daughter. I, 48 female, and my husband, 48 male, have 2 kids, Randy, who's 22, and Eve, who's 19. Eve was diagnosed with autism when she was in elementary school. She does school online currently and can do some pretty basic tasks by herself, but me and my husband have to do a lot for her, cook for her, drive her places, etc. She recently started doing her own laundry, which we're very proud of, but it took like 4 years of learning and encouragement. We love her and we know we'll have to care for her. Eve loves toys. She especially likes dolls and little interactive animal toys. For Christmas, we had my parents, my 2 sisters and their husbands, my one sister's 15-year-old daughter, and my mom's sister and her husband. Randy got a few games he wanted, plus a new laptop he needs for his classes next semester. Eve got dolls, a small dollhouse, some pajamas, some stuffed animals, and the big gift was an interactive horse toy that you can braid the hair of and things. Eve was overjoyed and played with it up until it was time for lunch. I didn't notice anything before, but at lunch, my mom was looking over at my sister, Brianna, and her daughter, Marissa, like they had done something wrong. I helped my daughter get a plate of food, got her a juice box, and went to go get my own food. I then heard yelling and my daughter crying and went back to the table. Turns out, Marissa had told Eve she's childish and shouldn't want toys anymore and needs to grow up, and my sisters both agreed. Marissa told her that she should be braiding her own hair instead of a toy's fake hair and make herself pretty instead of making a toy pretty. My mom and my father were horrified, and they had apparently heard Marissa and Brianna express this earlier and told them that they were being insensitive and will be in trouble if they tell me, my husband, or Eve that. Randy, the great brother he is, took Eve away from the situation and up to her room to calm down. I, as calmly as possible, explained for the millionth time that Eve is autistic. Her brain works differently, and if you were with her daily, you would see that her toys actually help her learn social skills, regulate her emotions, and calm her down. Brianna then said that I baby her too much. We make meals for her, get her food, buy her toys, and drive her everywhere, when we should just force her to learn on her own. Brianna said that because she does school, she's normal enough to live on her own. The exact words. I told Brianna, Marissa, and Brianna's husband to leave. My other sister and her husband tried to defend them, saying that if I just cut the cord, Eve would learn how to survive. I told them to leave too. My husband is with me, as is my father, but my mother said I took it too far by kicking them out and saying I'm never letting them around Eve again. They really hurt Eve. Luckily, she's still playing with her toys, so they didn't seem to ruin her love of them, but she's been sad and crying all day. I just put her to bed and started crying myself once she wasn't able to see me do it. Am I the jerk? I got Eve her food because she has pretty severe motor delays. She's about on the level of a 5-year-old. Normally, I try to let her get her own food, and if she makes a mess, I clean it up. But since there were platters of food, think buffet style on a kitchen counter, that if she spilled, it would make a hazard on the kitchen floor where other people could slip. And my mom has had 2 knee replacements, so if she slips, that would have ruined Christmas even more. Her making a mess while eating isn't a worry because I can clean it later and nobody is going to be walking under the table to slip on it. We've worked with specialists since Eve's diagnosis to figure out the right way to both care for and foster independence. From some testing last year, specialists believe that Eve is at the level of a 4 or 5-year-old socially, 5-year-old motor skills, and academically 14. The problem is, she doesn't appear to have the cognitive ability to apply what she learns in school to the real world. For example, Eve could read a book and identify a character as mean because they don't understand, but she can only understand that my sisters and her cousin are mean, but not really why. Her language fluctuates from nonverbal to verbal with the language capability of a 2-year-old to verbal with the language capability of a 5-year-old. Her academic ability is an outlier, but the specialists don't seem too alarmed by it, so we aren't either. Not the jerk. You're protecting your daughter. And hey, maybe by cutting the cord with your sister's family, you'll force them to learn some empathy. If any cords have to be cut, I'd be looking at the family before the daughter. They were cruel and thoughtless, and then they doubled down on it when you called it out. I'd have given them the boot too. OP did the right thing to protect her daughter.
Imagine your mother-in-law steals your PlayStation 5 and refuses to give it back. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.